come into town with the Dodgers trying to ward off the Mets in the opener of a 3-game series. At 5 o'clock here, it's very hot, temperature in the 90s, and it's smoggy, and it's unseasonably humid in Southern California today, but the weather does not deter Dodger fans. Dodger Stadium is sold out, and the crowd, a late arriving one, still coming in off the freeways, but they will have in excess of 50,000 looking on tonight as the Dodgers come home to start a 3-game series against the New York Mets. I'm Al Michaels, and the Dodgers are 9 games back of Houston in the West. Still think they're alive. As far as the Mets are concerned, it's a whole other story. But there's an oddity here tonight. If you were Davey Johnson, the manager of the Mets, and somebody said you'd go to L.A. on the 18th of August, and Gary Carter would have just gone on the disabled list, Darryl Strawberry would be 0 for his last 24. Len Dykstra would be 1 for his last 22, and then you'd come out to the ballpark and you'd put Ray Knight and Mookie Wilson in the lineup and have to scratch them because they both had the flu. You would go, uh-oh. But instead, the Mets, of course, are all laughs and smiles, and that's the luxury of a 16.5 game lead in the National League East. And they're really not thinking about the Dodgers. They're thinking about October. But they're also thinking about Gary Carter, and let's get an update on that situation because Gary Carter on Saturday in a game against the St. Louis Cardinals was playing first base. And he was hurt on this play as he lunged to his right. He hurt his glove hand, the left hand, partially torn ligaments, left thumb. He is on the 15-day DL. But let's find out exactly where he stands right now and how much longer it will be as we go to Tim McCarver.
All right, Al, I guess you could say that Gary Carter is cast in a different light now. You obviously can't show us how that happened with the cast on your left thumb. Can you show us how it happened using your right thumb as a demonstrator, Gary?
Well, first of all, it was terrible coordination, that's for sure, because obviously you could see by the replay that I landed on it incorrectly. I caught the ball on my left-hand side, and I was on my knees, and I tried to brace my fall, and as it turned out, I landed in this position, and it hit the ground and then caused this outside, the radial collateral ligament, to partially tear. I didn't want to believe anything was wrong, but it was the same thumb that I had broken and severed 10 years ago, and I thought about that immediately. But after a while, I played the next 2 plays, and wouldn't you know, they came my way as well. And you see, being a catcher and going to first base, Timmy, those things aren't supposed to happen, so I didn't want to believe it. I was out of position, but yet, you know, that's when the injury occurred.
And remarkably, the first time you broke your thumb, you weren't catching either, right?
That's correct. I was playing right field, and Pepe Manguel and I he was playing center, I was playing right, and we collided. And I knocked him unconscious and severed my thumb. I was out 6 weeks, and he was back in 3 days.
And there are only 2 autographs on this cast, and who are they?
They are my daughters, Christy and Kimmy, and if they're watching down in Florida, they went home to get prepared for school, that hopefully they'll be watching, because, sweetie, I got both your signatures on there, and they're the only ones that are going to be able to sign this cast, too.
Christy and Kimmy will be watching with the rest of the country. Now let's go back to the booth to Al Michaels. Alois?
All right, Tim. Well, Carter will be nice and rested, I would think, for the playoffs. But as I'm joined now by Jim Palmer, will the Dodgers be rested, or will they be resting when the playoffs come? I'm wondering, do the Dodgers have some sort of feeling maybe of some consolation or more optimism in that they are chasing Houston and San Francisco, 2 teams which didn't figure to be there, as opposed to, let's say, if they had gone neck and neck with the Cincinnati Reds down the stretch?
Well, that's a point. Of course, if you have a team that's managed by Tommy Lasorda, you're always going to have optimism. If they had 9 games left in the season and you're 9 games out, Tommy would think they have a chance to win. But the bottom line is they've played very poorly on the road, 37. At home, they're 37 and 23. They have a 9-game homestand. Last time they were home for 9 games, they won 8 out of those 9 games. So this is a very important series. I think another important thing is that Houston, with a 6-game lead, has never been in this position before. So maybe they will fold, but the key, though, of course, for the Dodgers to go on a long winning streak, they have to keep winning and hope that Houston will start losing.
And rely on their pitching as always, and a good one tonight in Hershiser.
Well, Orel Hershiser, 19-3 last year, only 12-8 this year, but he's won 5 out of 7, 7 out of 10. But the big question with the Dodgers is their bullpen. They have to get themselves together out there.
And they've gotten a couple of saves in the last 2 days from Tom Niedenfuer, so they come off the road home to begin a 3-game series with the New York Mets, and we'll get it underway from Los Angeles in just a moment. At Dodger Stadium tonight, the Dodgers about to take the field, and in the twilight, The Mets will line up this way as they come in to begin their road trip. Len Dykstra gets the start in center field, and then Wally Backman having a great year at second base. Keith Hernandez steady as always. Darryl Strawberry is in the cleanup spot, and Danny Heap replaces Mookie Wilson, who has the flu. We talked about Ray Knight with the flu, and so it's Howard Johnson at third. And with Carter gone, it's Ed Hearn catching. Rafael Santana has become the everyday shortstop, at least for the moment. And the pitcher is Bob Ojeda. The Dodgers will go up and over the 2.4 million mark in attendance tonight. So despite the fact the club is 9 back in the National League West, the crowd still come out. The advance sale here is terrific, and if the Dodgers don't draw 3 million these days, something is wrong. So they figure to be up and over that number. Some puffy cumulus clouds, as you can see, beyond the mountains. And that is unusual, and that has created what I refer to as the unusual humidity in Southern California, hot and sort of Midwest sticky as the Mets come in and wait for the Dodgers to take the field.
Of course, if you're from New York and you're a Met, you think this is a perfect day.
That's exactly right. Low humidity.
The Dodgers are all complaining. The Mets are saying this is our type of weather. And I guess we'll see whether that is true.
And the Mets come in buoyant and confident and figuring that the National League East race is over, and they have been figuring that for some time, and who's to dispute it, despite losing 4 out of 6 to the Cardinals over the past 4 days at Shea Stadium. The Dodgers, who are injury decimated and have been most of the season, go with Bill Russell and then Gonzalez and Williams in the outfield. The 2 rookies with Madlock, Duncan, Sachs, and Cabell in the infield. Mike Scioscia is back of the plate. And the Dodger pitcher, who is tough under any circumstances, and particularly so in the twilight, as are most pitchers, Orel Hershiser. 12-8 with a 3.68 ERA, and a man whose success hinges on his keeping the ball down, and if he is on, you'll see a lot of ground outs.
Well, you certainly will, and you talked about his success, 9-3 here at Dodger Stadium, 3-5 on the road. And if you talk to Orel about why he's so successful here, you can pretty good idea from this perspective. You look at the slope of the mound. It's one of the best mounds in baseball to throw off. Great slope. If you're a fastball pitcher and Orel's a sinker baller, get great velocity, get on top of your curveball, have that tight spin. And he has been very successful here, though. And we talked about 19-3 last year. This year only 12-8. And you wonder why. Bad mechanics. Team hasn't played well, leading the National League in most errors. So, but as we said, he's been pitching very well.
And really his home and road record reflecting the Dodger woes. The Dodgers playing very well here. In fact, they have the second best home record in the league, second only to, you guessed it, the Mets, but they have been close to abysmal on the road. However, they do come back with some momentum, having beaten the Giants Saturday and Sunday. Len Dykstra had been 0 for 21, and as you see, his home run against Ray Burris yesterday ended the longest 0 for streak of his career. And so Dykstra comes in still through the slump, batting .311 with an outside shot at the batting title, but certainly had a better looking shot a week ago. And here we go from L.A. on a half-swing ground ball to short, and Mariano Duncan throws him out. So 1 pitch, 1 away. And on the subject of batting titles, here comes a guy who would be leading the league right now in hitting, Wally Backman, but he does not have enough plate appearances to qualify. And the way things look right now, Tim, it doesn't appear that Backman will have enough plate appearances unless Davey Johnson starts putting him in against a few lefties down the stretch.
Based on that 3.1 at-bats that a hitter should have over the course of a 162-game season, that would give him 502 plate appearances. Right now, in order to contend for the batting title, you should have 366 at-bats. Backman has 35 fewer at-bats. So it doesn't appear that he will have the 502 plate appearances necessary to qualify for the batting title. You know, there are more left-handed pitchers in the league today. And Backman, a switch hitter, with the acquisition of Tim Tuffle during the offseason, Backman does not play against left-handers. Consequently, he's out of the lineup more often than he would have been 5 years ago.
That's the salient point. In fact, about 35% of the games in the National League this year have been started by lefties. And if you go back to 1981, the figure was 21%. And that's grounded toward the middle and backhanded by Sachs, who plants, throws, and doesn't get him. Backman legs it aboard. And it's a base hit. Infield single for Backman.
Well, if you're Orel Hershiser, you'd get Wally Backman to hit the kind of pitch you want, the sinker, a little bit up. Steve Sachs does everything right, but then here's where speed comes in. Wally just outlegs it. Very close play, just beats it. And of course, if you're going to contend for a batting championship, it's nice to be able to get sometimes the ground ball hits, and you can see the elation on his face. It's not cleanly hit, kind of pitch that a pitcher wants the batter to hit, and yet it's still a base hit.
Now Keith Hernandez. Steadily and I guess somewhat silently this season, not getting a lot of headlines. It's been Carter and Strawberry and Backman and Dykstra, but just rolling along at 296 with 10 homers and 57 RBIs. 1-0 the count. Tommy Lasorda, the eternal optimist, watched his club look like they were dropping out of the race for all practical purposes last week when they dropped 3 of 4 in Houston and blew a couple of late inning leads. But I wouldn't count them out yet. 7 weeks to go and 9 back. Certainly not insurmountable.
Well, I played on a team in '82, team that went to the last day of the year, and I ended up losing that ball game. That was about 8 back in early September, and Brewers had the big lead, and Earl Weaver kept telling us we have an opportunity to win as long as there's still enough games, and the Dodgers certainly have plenty of games. They're just going to have to upgrade a lot of levels of play, and that's the bullpen, their defense, starting pitching, which has really been very consistent all year. They've been scoring not a lot of runs, but enough to win, especially with the kind of pitching staff they have here in Los Angeles, or at least historically they have here in Los Angeles.
Backman this season has 9 steals. The Mets don't run a great deal. He's also been caught 7 times.
But an ideal pitcher against whom to hit and run. A good contact hitter, a ground ball pitcher. Good speed at first, all the elements there for a hit and run count. Davy Johnson loves to send his runners not to steal a base, but with the good contact hitters that he employs, he likes to give them the advantage of having that infield, shortstop and second baseman in particular, out of position.
A chopper to third, and Madlock has to wait for it to come down, and his only play is over to Cabell as Backman advances to second.
I think the most amazing thing about Orel Hershiser is in the fact in 166 starts, he's never in one ball game thrown 2 home runs. And Davy Johnson, being a numbers man, most likely knows this. So you're going to hit and run. You're going to try to advance the runner, as we saw there, get a runner in scoring position. You know that Hernandez has got a guy on first really that can steal. You have Hernandez handles the bat well, is not going to chase too many pitches. You take a look at Davy. So you create, as you said, some holes and maybe get that cheap base hit that normally would be an out.
You know, what you said is really, if you love this game, worth thinking about in some detail. Hershiser's record in that sense. The fact he has not in his career allowed 2 or more homers in one game.
That's how you end up 19-3, as he did last year, with an earned run average, 2.03. And as we said, he just keeps the ball down. When he's had a good sinker, it's real tough to lift that kind of pitch.
To put it in some perspective, as Danny Heap waits on deck, of all of the pitchers in both leagues this year who've made 20 or more starts, in other words, those basically in the starting rotation who haven't been hurt, only Mike Scott of Houston, along with Hershiser, has not given up 2 homers in one game. And Hershiser has done it through his career. So if you see back-to-back jobs against this man, it's history. That's a broken bat, fly ball to right field, and it's Williams, who looked like he was about ready to make the catch, backing off, and a base hit scores Backman. And there's a break in more ways than one, figuratively and literally, for Strawberry to bust out of an 0 for 24.
Any hitter in the world will exchange a broken bat for a base hit, especially if you're 0 for 24. Hershiser does jam him But Strawberry with that long looping swing, you got to pitch him inside. We'll talk more about why Hershiser can't pitch guys inside a little bit later on.
Now Danny Heap getting the start when Mookie Wilson showed up for the ball at the ballpark with a touch of the flu, as did Knight. So it's Heap playing left and Johnson at third.
Well, Danny with a 2-run home run yesterday in the second game of a doubleheader.
By a lunging Cabell and into right field for a base hit. And so Strawberry goes to third, and the Mets have 2 on with 2 out. And 3 hits off Hershiser here in the first inning.
Batting 6, number 20, third baseman.
Well, one of the toughest situations to pitch in is the first baseman holding a guy on. You see Enos Cabell with a lunge to his right, doesn't come up with it. Again, you have to hold on a guy like Darryl Strawberry. He's already stolen 25 bases. You create that hole, and then as Danny Heap took advantage of it. Routine ground ball if there's nobody on first base. But that wasn't the case.
Howard Johnson now, the switch hitter, and far more proficient this way. He's batting .280 left-handed and .133 in limited right-handed appearances. 0-1. Just to refresh you, at the start of the season, it looked like the Mets might go the same way they did last year. That was a possibility with Johnson and Knight platooning at third, but Ray asserted himself early, and the job right now is his.
And the one guy that believed in Ray Knight was Davey Johnson. Bill Robinson straightened him up a little bit with the bat. Off to a torrid start. As a matter of fact, one time in mid-May, he was leading the National League in hitting.
0-2 the count.
Howard Johnson has become such a dominant fastball hitter in this league, and everybody knows it, that I think Howard ought to reverse his thinking now and go up and look for all breaking balls. But he continues to have fastball swings at curveballs, and that's a bad formula.
Especially when you have a guy like Hershiser. We talked about the sinker, but one of the best curveballs in the National League, and let's see if he uses it here. And he did, a little bit low. Of course, one of the keys in pitching is even if you know a guy can't hit a curveball, you still have to get it over. That's what the game, I guess it seems so simple in some senses. You have a guy that knows he can't hit a curveball, and that's why he's looking for the fastball every time. You have a pitcher on the mound that knows the guy can't hit a curveball, and the question is, can he get it over? Or and will he get it over? And the good ones do it more often than not.
1 ball, 2 strikes with 2 on and 2 out, of the Mets ahead 1-0 in the first inning. And a breaking pitch got him, and down he goes to end the top of the first inning. A run, 3 hits, 2 left. After a half, it's the Mets 1. And the Dodgers coming up. Steve Sachs is the leadoff hitter. And then Mariano Duncan, who's been in and out of the lineup a lot of late. The Dean, Bill Russell, gets the start, hits third in left. And then Bill Madlock is the cleanup hitter with Enos Cabell at first base. The catcher is the left-hand batting Mike Scioscia. He stays in against Ojeda. Reggie Williams is in right. And Jose Gonzalez, the rookie, is in center with Hershiser batting ninth. And those of you who follow the sport, as you look at the Mets defensively, Heap, Dykstra, Strawberry, and the infield of Johnson, Santana, Backman, and Hernandez. Hearn back of the plate, Ojeda on the mound. You know that Pedro Guerrero was hurt in spring training, tried to come back, ill-fated attempt really. He's back on the disabled list, and even if he is activated, chances are he's not going to be of much benefit to them down the stretch. At the moment, they also have Ken Landreau on the DL, the outfielder. They have Jerry Royce on the DL, the utility infielder Dave Anderson, and they've had guys off and on the DL all season long.
Well, 13 or 14, I saw 2 numbers when we did the game last year, and last week in Houston. But looking at Bobby Ojeda, and Timmy, you've seen him almost all year. He's 12-4 with an earned run average under 3 at about 2.75. He's lost his last 2 starts, but has pitched extremely well. And when they made the trade acquiring him from Boston, and last year he's 9-11, I felt they were going to use him as a middle reliever, maybe a guy that they use as a long man, but he's been a pleasant surprise for the Mets.
Well, the one big reason is Ojeda has had an opportunity to use a straight change. He didn't have that luxury at Fenway Park in Boston because of the Green Monster. He was afraid of making mistakes, but in the big National League ballparks, you can make a mistake and get away with it.
Steve Sachs having the best year of his career. Taking low, ball one. Sachs, when he came up as a rookie, hit 282, and then he followed that 281. Then he slumped in 84 to 243. Last year 279, and now this season at 322. And there's the change, and the count is 2-0.
When he talks about his success, he said, "I've learned the strike zone. I've been more disciplined." And of course, when you do that, you get better pitches to hit. And here's an example. It's 2-0. He can look for a fastball, and let's see if he gets it. Does, but for ball 3. Well, you really sit in the driver's seat if you're willing to go up to the plate and be patient and make the pitcher throw strikes.
Exactly. It's not that you walk more. It's that you get better pitches to hit. A lot of young hitters can't understand that.
In there, 3-1.
Of course, at the same time, you don't want to take their aggressiveness away from them. That's why hitting is so difficult. You have to be patiently aggressive. It's a misnomer.
Of course, the book on Ojeda you talked about, he has a nice big slow curveball, a sinker he runs away from right-handers, a four-seam fastball he tries to establish inside, and the great changeup. And everybody has said that the second time around, even though this is his first start against the Dodgers, as you look at ball 4, they're going to look for that changeup. They're going to catch up with him, and I don't really know if that'll be the case.
25, shortstop.
Mariano Duncan comes up. You know, at this hour, I'm not sure you can go up there looking for anything except the baseball period. I think when Craig Janoff punched up that low shot from back of home plate, you get some idea of how difficult it is. Bright sunshine, and there it is, and you can see the batter looks into a bright background, and Ojeda is standing in the sun, and then there are some shadows angling in from third base, and then a strip of light out in front of the batter's box, and then Duncan is in the shadows. And he's up there to bunt and lays it down, and the bunt rolls foul. And the count 0-1. And that's something that Duncan has been doing more of late after not doing it at all through much of the first half of the season.
Well, they want him to become a leadoff hitter, even though Sachs is having a great year. As you take another look at the attempted bunt for a base hit, this is not a sacrifice. This is to try to get to first, to create that first and second situation. And Howard Johnson letting the ball roll foul. Something that Mariano Duncan really has not been able to do. And you see right there that Bob Ojeda's had some problems in the first inning, and there are all kinds of reasons for that. You come out of the bullpen, you throw off a mound that usually is a little bit different height, you don't really know what you have going, and that's part of really, I guess, having experience as a pitcher, finding out as soon as you can what you really have that particular night. And you, I guess, as a former catcher, Tim, a lot of times you don't have a clue either, do you?
Have no clue. Warming up a pitcher gives you no idea. That's why I always laugh when catchers used to go down and warm up the pitchers before a ball game, because often it's not the stuff you're going to see during the game.
A lot of great games in the bullpen where you come out of there knowing you're going to pitch a no-hitter and you give up 3 or 4 runs in the first inning.
0-2 is ripped down the line, but hooking foul back out of play.
Well, going back to that thought about Bob Ojeda and a lot of the sports writers and I guess a lot of the scouts saying that basically the second time around they'll sit on the changeup. He really feels, in talking to him before the game, if you can make quality pitches, if you can get the ball on the corners of the plates, the inside half, the outside half, you're going to be successful, especially with a team like the Mets that has a pretty good defensive ball club that can score you runs. He doesn't believe that if you make quality pitches, even if a guy's looking for it, that he is going to beat you on a consistent basis. Again, the difficulty is making those quality pitches. He hasn't done that his last 2 times.
Sachs with 26 steals, and the 0-2 pitch is inside. 1-2 the count. Most hitters will tell you they'd rather face a guy with a good fastball who doesn't vary speeds in lighting conditions such as this. I would think with Ojeda's changeup and his change of speeds, he'd be particularly difficult to face under these lighting conditions, as Duncan attests to there. 1 away. Did you feel that way, Tim, as a player? Would you rather have faced a Nolan Ryan, let's say, at 5 o'clock than a Bob Ojeda? Well, maybe not Ryan. You get the idea.
Maybe somebody that threw consistently about 8 miles an hour slower. But a guy who threw consistently 1 speed instead of a changeup, a guy who changed speeds. I think whether at 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night or 1 in the afternoon, I would have rather faced a pitcher like that.
Bill Russell now takes up high, ball 1.
Generally speaking, there's not a pitcher around that can throw a ball that a major league hitter can't catch up to. If you keep pounding one fastball after the other, they'll eventually catch up to it. That's why changing speeds is so important.
Runner goes, and it's chopped down to Hernandez, and they take care of Russell. Sacks moving on the play, and Steve is now at second with 2 down. And we'll take a look at Bill Madlock with the Mets ahead 1-0 in the first inning.
Well, you saw the strikeout to Dunk. It's a perfect example. If you're sitting in the stands, you're sitting at home, he throws him a hanging changeup. He's a little bit out in front of it. He fouls it by hitting a line drive down the left field line. You say, oh, this guy made a bad pitch. He doesn't have much tonight. Then he throws him a great fastball right on the outside corner. Out in front, back, and you said it many times, Timmy, you'd have them leaning forward, then you have them on their heels, you have them looking away, and then you get them out in. And this is what Ojeda's done all year long, and this is why he's been successful. He is not, as you said, a guy that's going to go out there and throw the ball by you, but he will throw it by you, and we saw another example of that with Duncan, by changing speeds, making you aware first of the fastball, maybe then the changeup, the curveball, and then making good pitches, which he did.
Oh, 1 on Madlock. Bill, as you saw, hitting .274, but he's tough in the clutch. He's hitting .379 with runners in scoring position, as is the case right here with sacks at second base and 2 down. Mets ahead 1-0 in the bottom of the first inning. 1-1.
Well, what makes Bill Madlock so difficult to pitch to, and I pitched against him in the '79 World Series, is that very short strokes, won 4 batting championships. He's trying to drive the ball right back up the middle. Now, he could hit a home run if you make a mistake, but he is not going to do anything that Bob Ojeda wants him to do. He's going to look for a pitch that he can handle and try to hit it hard. And over the course of his career, he's been able to do that.
Two and two, pulling the string again. Madlock mirroring the Dodgers in a way. Bill has been on the disabled list twice this season. The Dodgers have played 118 games and yet have only 1 player who's been in more than 100, and that's Sachs. In the air to shallow left, and it's Santana going out and Heap coming on, and Danny makes the play. At the end of 1, the Mets lead the Dodgers 1-0, and will return to Los Angeles after this message and a word from your local station.
I have taken on many fighters and tried many beers. One beer isn't a class by itself. Light beer from Miller. Light tastes great and it's less filling. It weighs in at 1/3 less calories than the regular beer. Yes, I discovered your greatest beer, but I never met your greatest fighter. Hey, who is this Billy Martin anyway?
Billy Martin, he's warm, he's gentle, good looking too.
I got to meet this guy.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
It's Corey McFerrin in New York, a new quarterback in Buffalo. Some say the best in football. Jim Kelly, former USFL star, agrees to a 5-year contract, reportedly worth close to $8 million. In boxing, the Marvelous One says, bring on Sugar Ray. Middleweight champ Marvin Hagler will forego retirement to meet Sugar Ray Leonard next March at a site to be determined. Now back to Al in Los Angeles.
All right, thank you, Corey. And here with the Mets ahead 1-0, Ed Hearn leads things off, and we'll be seeing a lot of Hearn over the next couple of weeks at least. Santana and Ojeda to follow as Hearn and John Gibbons called up when Carter went on the DL are the Met catchers. Tim, you watch the Mets every day. What sort of player is Hearn?
Well, he's a guy that has filled in very capably. The jury's still out as to whether he can play every day as a major league catcher, but he's done a fine job when called upon. This is his 20th start. As a matter of fact, he had his debut right here in Dodger Stadium. Not Gary Carter, Ed Hearn.
1-2 pitch is a check swing, and they appeal, and no, says first base umpire Frank Pulley, in the count 2-2.
I had a chance yesterday to watch the Mets in New York against St. Louis. I saw John Gibbons, his first extra base hit as a major leaguer. And then talking to Vern Hoshike, who's a bullpen coach here with the Mets, he is very impressed the way he receives the baseball.
Hit down to Duncan on 2 hops. 1 away in the second inning. Hearn gone, and we'll take a look at Rafael Santana.
Of course, Vern talked about Gibbons outstanding in the minor league level, throwing runners out. And a lot of times they hit guys like, well, Lenny Dykstra, 105 bases stolen in Lynchburg. So if you can throw guys out at at AAA level, you might even do a better job in the big leagues where they hold you on a little bit better, and you get some help from your pitchers.
Well, the one thing that's nice about being a catcher is that if you impress in either of the categories, offense or defense, you'll be in the big leagues. If you're an outfielder and you've got a good arm, you may never even make the big leagues. A shortstop with a good arm. An example, Jose Oquendo, who had a tough time with the Mets. He went over to the Cardinals and has done a fine job. And catching is the easiest way to make the big leagues for that reason. If you've got a good arm, good hands, you can make it. Or if you're a good hitter, you can make it.
Or if you're a pitcher, you want to be left-handed.
Yeah.
That helps too. 1-1. Rafael Santana with the outfield bunched together in shallow. Santana at 198, and believe it or not, that's the highest he has been this season. I don't know that this is what you would call a salary drive, but at least he figures to get up and over the Mendoza line shortly.
It's a playing drive is really what it is. And I talked to Davey Johnson about, finally you got Santana as your regular shortstop, as you see Duncan bobble it.
And that's going to cost him too. And so Santana grounding to his opposite number, and Duncan committing an error. And the Dodgers lead the majors in that department.
131 errors, and you just saw another one, and again it's a routine play, the one that Duncan sometimes exasperates Tommy Lasorda. As you take a look at Tommy again, you're looking at a shortstop right now that can go to his left and his right as well as anybody, but sometimes he messes up the routine play, and that is exactly what young players do. It's a chance to be a great shortstop. Has a great arm, good range, switch hitter, even though they like to obviously make him more of a contact hitter.
Bud Harrelson flashing the signs to Ojeda with a count 0-1. Bob is hitting 111, but he's up there to bunt here. Santana at first base. That error by Duncan was his 22nd. So he's been the most futile of the futile as far as the Dodgers are concerned. And it's Socha who tells Hershiser he'll take care of this. A good bunt advances the runner. Put out recorded at first base by Sachs, and with 2 down, Santana now at second with the Mets ahead 1-0. And Len Dykstra comes up.
Well, again, that defense, it just jumps up and bites you every time you turn around if you're a Dodger pitcher. And I've always been amazed. And if you look at last year, they led the National League in earned run average. Of course, that doesn't mean the amount of runs allowed. They just make a lot of errors. They don't help you. We talked about it last Monday night. They had really 4 first basemen playing defense for them. Marshall in right, and Stubbs in center, and Matuzik in left, and Brock at first base. So they're not really going to help you yet. Historically, year in and year out, the Dodgers have an excellent pitching staff.
Usually good pitching and good defense go hand in hand, but not so with the Dodgers.
Low for a ball, and the count 2-0. Well, one of the things that Bill Madlock keeps saying about the Dodgers is, so much emphasis is placed on the injuries. He says, forget about that. Listen, every team goes through the injuries. It's the way we've been playing. And that's what Bill kept saying through the first 3 months of the year. And the Dodgers did start to play a little bit better, but then they went into Cincinnati, and another bad road trip for them.
When you talk about the pressure right here, you have a guy like Lenny Dykstra last year hit 259. This year's hitting well over 300. Was at 335. Now about 311. That error creates a situation with a man on second that you have to work a little bit harder, and that's the type of situation that later in the ball game might take a little bit out of you. We talked about the humidity. It's about 95 degrees. So and then a guy coming up next from the left side is hitting over 350. So it just makes it a little bit tougher if you're a pitcher if they don't make the plays they should make in the field.
3-1 the count, 2 down. Backman waiting on deck. And Hershiser's 3-1 is outside. So Dykstra is on. And it will bring up Wally Backman. Not much action in either league today. 1 day game, however. Complete. And there are the figures as Cincinnati beats San Diego 6-5. John Denny over Dave LaPointe, with Franco getting his 20th save. Buddy Bell has been very hot. Another home run today, and that's 14 for him.
4 home runs in the last 3 games for Buddy Bell.
And Bell today named last week's National League Player of the Week. Backman chops it foul. Bell is so hot, you keep looking at box scores and saying, well, wait a minute, is this yesterday's paper? Another home run?
You know, he went over there last year from Texas, and he struggled early in the year. He struggled, and I'm saying this is not the same Buddy Bell that I pitched against in the American League, because he's an outstanding, never really been a home run hitter. Maybe hit 20 home runs one time, but great line drive hitter, a gap hitter. If you throw him a good breaking ball, just take it to right field. And yet he went over the National League and never really, until the last couple of months, has been the player that he was in the American League. And I guess maybe that is what going from league to league, adjusting, and he's done a great job of that.
Well, Buddy's problem has been defense throughout his career, right?
Yeah.
What is he?
Well, I played with Brooks Robinson, and other than Brooks and maybe Greg Nettles in the American League, you don't see guys that can handle grounders as deftly as a Buddy Bell.
Boy, he is outstanding.
1-1 pitch is outside. On the outside corner on the delayed call by Greg Bonin. In fact, the Dodgers a couple of years ago having their problems at third, and this was before Madlock came over last year, were very interested in Buddy Bell.
Well, the Orioles for years too, and used to talk to Edward Bennett Williams about that, and I said, you're going to give up about 5 key players, quality players, because that's what it would have taken 3 or 4 years ago. Last year with Texas out of the race, going with the youth movement, Cincinnati got him relatively cheap.
And the 1-2 pitch. He reaches out and fouls it away by Harrelson. So still 1-2 with 2 out, an error and a walk, and the Mets have runners at first and second. Second inning. New York ahead 1-0. Lasorda with Monty Basgall. Tommy completing his 10th season as the manager of the Dodgers. Boy, have the years gone by. Half swing, and he comes around and misses, and Socha will have to throw down a Cabell to make it official. No runs, no hits, but an error and a walk, and the Mets lead 2, and so we go to the bottom of the second at Dodger Stadium with the Mets leading L.A. 1-0. Going to the bottom of the second inning, we told you about Gary Carter, and here's how his replacement, Ed Hearn, views his upcoming opportunity.
Well, it's a great opportunity for me, but, you know, you never like to get in there because of an injury, you know, especially to Gary. He's such an outstanding guy, and he's one of the main cogs in this ball club. I don't look to go in there and I'm not trying to fill his shoes. I don't think there's anybody in baseball who could fill his shoes right now. He's a great leader. He does the job offensively, defensively. He's the ultimate catcher, I feel, right now. So, you know, I'm not trying to go in there and be Gary Carter. I have to go in there and be myself, do the job I'm capable of, and if I can do that, I think, you know, everything will be great.
Bottom of the second inning with Hearn back at the plate, and Ojeda starting Cabell with a strike. Cabell spent 2 years in the American League with the Tigers in '82 and '83, and he was 5 for 9, as you see, with 1 home run. So he liked facing Ojeda.
Of course, that was a little different Bob Ojeda, and you talked earlier, Tim, about Fenway Park,
but he wraps one down the left field line, and he is now 6 for 10 lifetime. As Cabell is on his way to second, and it may be a different Ojeda, but to Ojeda, it's the same Cabell.
Well, it certainly was, and when you get a poor pitch from a pitcher's standpoint to hit, and you are a good hitter like Enos is, the result is usually a line drive, and high curveball up in the strike zone, right in the middle of the plate, and he just hits it where nobody's playing down the left field line for a double.
Mike Socha, who again is up among the league leaders in on-base percentage, average good, .289, and he walks a lot, tries to bunt his way on, and a throw to third as they have Cabell hung up in a rundown. Santana to Johnson, and Johnson makes the tag, and they throw to first and get a double play. And so a bunt, and Cabell gets caught between second and third, and the Dodgers, who make a lot of errors on defense, make a few as well base running, and Lasorda ready to head for the runway.
Well, watch Bobby Ojeda react. This is not a good bunt, and who said you have to make 1 throw in a rundown play? Earl Weaver said it. Yeah, well, here's a new twist to this. What you do is you bait the guy who hit the ball or to get him to round the bag too far for the double play. That went 1-5-6-5-3. Now that's what Branch Rickey meant by that one throw. You don't make one throw, you make 3 throws.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Get the extra out.
Of course.
Lasorda barking and, in a way, talking to himself as well. With
Tommy's
2
the
out.
type of guy that will walk over to Socia and will say, what made you think you were fast on that play? Socia just doesn't run well. And what, of course, the intent, and Cabell's trying to get caught in a rundown and allow Socia to get back in scoring position where he started out in. And Mike does not run well, never has, never will. Had an ankle injury earlier in the year, and the result is he overly aggressive, bad base running, gets picked off.
And not that bad a play. If he had gotten it to Ojeda's left, then Cabell easily at third base. Socia may have a chance for a hit. But at the very worst, Cabell would have been at third with less than 2 out, where he could score on something other than a base hit. Best laid plans of mice and men, huh? Turn into double plays.
And so 2 out and no one on, and 3-0 is the count on Reggie Williams. You hear so much about this being a great year for rookies, but it's really a great year for American League rookies, with Jose Canseco and Pete Incaviglia of the Texas Rangers and Danny Tartabull of Seattle, a swing and a miss, and of course the man down the freeway here, Wally Joyner. But in the National League, there's really at the moment only one guy who's been in the starting lineup just about every day among the non-pitchers as a rookie, and that's Robbie Thompson of San Francisco, though right now Barry Bonds plays every day in Pittsburgh, and Reggie Williams playing here tonight, making his 67th start of the season.
Batting 8th, number 47, center fielder.
So
Jose
Williams at
Gonzalez.
first base with 2 down, and Jose Gonzalez is the batter. And next Monday, our final Monday night baseball presentation of the season, with the Angels taking on the Yankees or the Red Sox against the Rangers at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And then we'll pick it up in September with some Sunday telecasts for you down the stretch and cover the American and National League Championship Series. The rookie Gonzalez swings and misses, and the count is 0-1.
Good-looking young player. Saw him last Monday night with a couple of hits. Came in the ballgame, doubled up the alley in right center, then singled into left field. They like him. Good center fielder, excellent speed. In fact, excuse me, it was a triple. It wasn't even a double. Got to third base so quick you forget about that. But he can motor.
0-2 with the Malfitano flashing signs. Gonzalez in spring training, at the beginning anyway, was going to battle Ken Landreau for the center field job, but he had a bad spring, sent down, and recently called back up. With Williams going, the pitch is low and the throw is high, and a good jump for Williams, who they take care of him at second base, as it's all academic on the delayed call by Bonin. Bonin rung him out at the plate. Then Lasorda looks on confused, as does the crowd, as we go to the third. 1-0 New York.
Red Sox, Minnesota Twins, the Metrodome. And here's what happens. Top of 1. Boston out on top in a hurry. Marty Barrett with a man on first. The shot past third, heading for the corner. Ed Romero digging around second. He's coming home, and he will score. Boston leads 1-0, still batting top of 1 as the Red Sox try to extend their 5-game lead in the East.
Leading off for New York.
And here at Dodger Stadium, 1-0 Mets as we go to the third inning. And another look at Gonzalez striking out on a very delayed call by the plate umpire Greg Bonin.
I couldn't believe how delayed the call was. I agreed with Lasorda until I saw the replay, and as Jim Palmer pointed out, the ball right down the middle of the plate.
Well, Tommy was yelling the pitch was high.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing, normally in a throwing situation, the catcher will come up. Hearn stayed down. We talked about his defensive ability, and he gave the umpire a good chance to see the pitch. Throw was late, but it was called strike 3, so it's really academic.
A drive to deep left center field, and it's Bill Russell going back at the wall and running out of room as Hernandez hits it out of here. Keith Hernandez going the other way for his 11th home run of the season. And again, keep in mind what we said earlier about Hershiser and the frugalness of Orel when it comes to giving up home runs. Never 2 in a game.
Davy Johnson ought to be all smiles. Do you know, Jim, I have never seen Keith Hernandez hit a ball out, and this is about 12 years, to left field under normal conditions. I've seen him hit balls out at Wrigley Field in Chicago with the wind blowing out to left, never under normal conditions in a uniform ballpark like this is. To left field.
And off Hershiser.
Yeah, of all people.
Of course, his intent is not to do that. His intent is just to drive the ball that way. And it goes back to that, all that speculation, is the ball really a little bit more lively? And if you talk to the pitchers, they seem to think so. Of course, if you talk to Earl Weaver, he wants to know why they're not on their way to hitting another 214 home runs like last year. But it does seem, and you see a lot of guys, and you see Lasorda giving him some heat.
So Greg Bonin and Lasorda, and Tommy, of course, beside himself anyway with the top of the second inning and Duncan's error, but Hershiser worked out, and then the Dodgers running themselves out of an inning in the second. In there. 1-2 the count. Stottlemyre with Johnson and their man Hernandez.
It's fun when a hitter gets a hit. I mean, he wants to talk to everybody, tell everybody about it. You get jammed or something, you go sit down at the end of the dugout, somebody comes up, you don't even want to say hello to him. Get away from him. Talk to me after my next hit.
Roll down to Sachs, who one hands and throws out Strawberry. And that's the first out here in the third inning. So one down, and Danny Heap coming to the plate.
Danny Heap.
Heap singled in the first. Mets with now 116 home runs, and that leads the league. And the Mets have not only never led the National League in home runs, they've never been higher than 5th in their 25-year history. And beyond question, the dominant team in baseball, with apologies to the Boston Red Sox, and they'd admit it too, but 1986 has been a year of the Mets pitching and hitting and fielding and everything else, as it's hit in the air to Russell, and Bill takes care of it for the out. 2 down.
Well, a team that won 98 games last year, second to the Cardinals in the National League East, and then Frank Cashin, some excellent trades. Got Huffle from Minnesota to shore up the second base. You got Ojeda. Ray Knight reemerged as a hitter that he was in Cincinnati, where he once hit .318. So, and they're again a very young bullpen. Doug Sisk is healthy. Orosco's elbow is better. Roger McDowell having a great year.
That's a bad play. 2 out, nobody on. Power hitter like Howard Johnson up, bad play. There are some things in baseball that are clear cut, and that's one of them. Unless you're a guy like Wally Backman, where most of your hits are singles anyway. That's a different deal. Plus, he can steal second base. But with 2 out and nobody on, a power hitter like Johnson, you got to try to get an extra base hit.
As you look at Dwight Gooden, Johnson probably going up and really not thinking situation, but thinking, as the graphic illustrated, how terrible he's been against Hershiser in his career. And that continues. That's the 10th time he has struck out against Orel in 17 career at-bats. 2-0 Mets at the end of 2 innings. Sight never ceases to amaze those of us who visit all of the parks in baseball. How beautiful and how almost brand new Dodger Stadium continues to look. The ballpark that opened in 1962. 25th season of baseball in this yard. Leading hitters amongst the pitchers in the National League, the former Dodger Rick Rhoden at .297, and then Orel Hershiser, who stands in here, and also Fernando Valenzuela amongst the top 5. In fact, this year, Lasorda on a couple of occasions has used that man, Valenzuela, to pinch hit, and Hershiser to pinch run for him. Strike, 0-1.
Oh, you don't go 19-3 if you can't help yourself fielding and batting. And take a look at both Tommy and Fernando in the background. And again, Fernando, the same type of guy. He's an excellent fielder, helps himself with a bat. It's a good way, and especially in the National League, because you don't hit in the American League, obviously.
Plus, he's an ex-hockey player.
I don't know if that's a very sensible thing to do, but of course he's gotten away from that. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. It's not sensible, but it does help you swing the bat.
Well, he said, tell him I have an awesome swing, and I said, when I see one, I'll tell him.
You know what? We could put together a line here. Kirk McCaskill, Hershiser, and who else? Well, Dykstra's uncle was a goalie, right?
Yep.
2-1 pitch.
John Tudor, also a skater.
From New England, right? 3-1. And there was Richie Hebner. We could bring him out of retirement.
He's digging graves up
out of the
Boston,
graveyard, so to speak.
Up in Medford. Back from the dead. Richie, no doubt, watching the ball game tonight. Boy, a fine career he had, too, with a number of clubs.
No doubt watching?
Oh, he is. Oh, you bet he is.
Speed up on the Hassett. Grounded to Backman, and Hershiser is taken care of. One away, and Sachs comes to the plate. Sachs walked in the first inning. Light schedule in both leagues, and only one other game in the National League. Houston leads Pittsburgh 1-0 in the 6th inning, with Cleveland leading Milwaukee 5-1 in the 5th. Boston ahead 1-0 in the 1st at Minnesota, and we told you about the other game earlier where the Reds defeated San Diego at Riverfront today.
Nice trade by the Red Sox, acquiring Spike Owen along with Dave Henderson. And we've done a number of Red Sox games, and I think one of their few weaknesses is their bench. Henderson, especially with Armas having injuries, can sit on the bench, play a little bit of center field, and Quinones, who went along that trade up to Seattle, really has not been the hitter and has been inconsistent both offensively and defensively. So when you're going down the stretch run and you don't have a lot of depth, it's a key trade for the Red Sox, in my opinion.
1-1 the count, and the Red Sox again helping themselves, winning 2 out of 3 over Detroit this weekend. Boston is play begins today, 5 games in front of the Yanks and 7 in front of Detroit and Toronto. Hit to shallow right field, and coming on quickly is Strawberry to make the catch, and a nice play by Darryl, who not only had a long way to go but also looking right into the sun with the glasses down.
And we talked about the twilight. Not as only does it bother the pitcher, or excuse me, the hitter, but here on a changeup, Sachs, and this is why he's hitting .322. He just goes with it, and then, as we talked about, defense can sometimes save you, and he does. And interesting, very, very similar to the play that Darryl hurt his thumb on last year.
That was a play hit by Juan Samuel the 2nd week of May of last year, when Strawberry went to his left, fell on that thumb, and was out 7 weeks.
0-1, and I'm sure that had to at least be in the recesses of his mind as each time he dives for a ball.
It's almost something you think about. If you saw the pre-game show, you'd see the way that Gary Carter hurt himself. Maybe think about a new kind of glove design. I'm really creative up here.
0-1 to Duncan. 0-2. You know what's unbelievable about Duncan? He had 10 triples in spring training. That's like hitting 50 triples in a season because you don't play that many games. 10 in spring training. He has none in the regular season.
The Dodgers only have 10.
Willie Davis used to have more than that in a year. Himself, the 0-2 pitch is chopped foul. The Dodgers are on a pace on which they would set a record for fewest triples. I know this is esoterica, but in a way, when you're dealing with a guy who has had as many triples throughout his career, and he led a couple of minor leagues with him, and the Dodgers were all talking in the spring about 10 triples in spring training, and then not to have one during the regular year. Won't get one here, but he winds up with a base hit anyway.
Left fielder.
Took a pretty good pitch.
Bill Russell.
We talked about Mariano Dunco, natural side, right side. Ojeda came right up in there with that fastball up and in, trying to jam him, and just too quick a bat. Just got the bat head out and single in the left field. The one thing, he doesn't have any triples, but he can't steal bases. 44 stolen bases, and that makes even the fact he doesn't have triples more amusing to me.
Now Russell at the plate. 1-0 the count.
Dodgers have always trained their hitters that hit after guys with speed, guys who run well, to take pitches, and Russell may take 2 more pitches.
There's one. 2-0. Again, games by position. You can see what Russell's meant. With all of the Dodger injuries, he's played 6 positions. He's appeared 26 times as a pinch hitter and 6 times as a pinch runner. And it's 3-0. And on deck is Madlock. Now, Malfitano doesn't even have to give the sign here. If Russell doesn't know now, he never will. And he's on. So Duncan goes to second, and Russell goes to first.
Third baseman, Bill Madlock.
And Madlock is the batter. Fly to left in the first inning. 2-0 Mets, 2 on, 2 out in the third.
When I was with the St. Louis Cardinals, Al, you were always taking until the count were 3-0, and if they gave the take sign 3-0, you were hitting. You were always taking 3-0, but if they gave the take sign 3-0, you were hitting.
Who was the man?
Red Shandies. And the reason for that was that the best time to pick up a take sign, or an indicator that a third baseman coach may use, is 3-0. So you just don't give the take sign. It's always understood that you're taking unless you were to give it, then you're hitting.
Fouled away in the count 0-1.
Because I played with Cal Ripken Sr., and a lot of times you don't, as you said, don't want to let the other team know the take sign. You just turn your back and walk away, and that's the take in a 3-0 situation.
Don Zimmer, the third base coach for the Yankees, of course, the most novel 3-0 take sign. He just wiggles his left finger.
Grounded slowly wide of third, and Johnson crosses in front of Santana to glove and throw him out. And the Dodgers leave a couple of more, and they've stranded 4 through 3. And we'll return to Los Angeles after this sellout crowd and enjoying themselves at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. Al Michaels with Jim Palmer and Tim McCarver as we go to the 4th inning, and Ed Hearn to lead off for the Mets. Hearn, Santana, and Ojeda with the Mets on top 2-0. And we were sitting here during the commercial, and Tim McCarver is convinced that the mound here at Dodger Stadium has never been lowered.
I am convinced.
To the mandatory 10 inches. Take a look.
That is correct.
Shot.
Supposed to be 10 inches. It was lowered after the 1968 season. And Jim really had that catalytic word earlier talking about the slope of the mound. I'll tell you, as a hitter here in Dodger Stadium, it appears that the pitcher is more on top of you than any other ballpark in the major leagues. And I think one of the reasons is that the mound is still 15 inches high.
At least. And the Mets pitchers were commenting. They love to come out here, the weather. And, of course, if you're a pitcher, you're concerned with the mound. They said it's the mound. And, of course, the best vantage point is right, really, when you look over Hershiser's shoulder.
That's hit down to Duncan. And it pulls Cabell off the bag, but he makes the sweep tag going by on Hearn for the out. And there's one gone.
Well, Enos has always been an outstanding athlete, and again he saves Mariano Duncan an error. Quick tag right there. A little bit later you have a runner on first, nobody out, and another error for Duncan.
Well, it was a pal of yours, of course, going back to that 1968 season when they lowered the mound from 15 to 10. That was the year that very few hitters reached the 300 figure. I'm trying to remember offhand, but I think in one of the leagues only one man was over 300.
Carl Yastrzemski hit 301.
301 for the Red Sox. And it was also the year that Bob Gibson had that unbelievable season with a 1.12 ERA.
And it was also the season that Don Drysdale pitched the 58 2/3 consecutive scoreless innings.
And it was also the season that the McLean won 31 games.
Right. Juan Marichal won 26.
ERA of 185 with all those innings, over 300 innings. But yes, this is one of those can you top type of discussions. But
it's good, though.
Definitely situation. Everybody talks about DiMaggio's hitting streak, and that's a marvelous thing. But and I'm not saying that Gibson's 1.12 ERA, but a 1.12 ERA for the course of a season as a former pitcher, and I know how easy it is to give up run, is utterly amazing. As we have a temporary stoppage, I think maybe a broken bat by Santana.
It was. So Raphael will come back up with a count 0-2, but we're going to get somebody out there and survey this baby pretty soon, huh?
Well, the umpire supervisor is supposed to do that on a regular basis, and I don't know if we're talking payola here or not, but that mound looks awfully high.
And down goes Santana. So the new bat was not put to any use by Raphael. And now he doesn't like the call by Bonin. And that's 4 strikeouts, and there are 2 down.
Well, the reason Hershiser got this pitch was because Scioscia was sitting there and barely had to move his glove. That tailing fastball, if your catcher is sitting out there, and that's why I advocate a catcher to move behind home plate rather than just to spot it with the glove, because you don't get pitches like that if you just move your glove over. If your body's there and he hits it, you'll get a ball 3 inches off the plate.
Well, it's much easier as a pitcher, and I always felt that most pitchers throw off the hitter anyway. So if the catcher doesn't move, you're not going to make quality pitches.
Well, Santana not only needed a new bat, but so will Ojeda the next time as well, as he grounds out on a busted bat bouncer to second. And at the end of 3.5, Mets 2, Dodgers nothing. With runs in the first and the third, leading the Dodgers 2-0. In a game far more important, of course, to the Dodgers. The Mets 16.5 in front in the National League East, and the Dodgers trying to chase the Astros, trailing them by 9 and 3 back of the Giants in the National West. Enos Cabell doubled in the second inning, and he is now 6 for 10 lifetime against Bob Ojeda. Strike, 0-1.
Going back to a point I tried to make the last time, Cabell, hanging curveball, hit the double down the left field line. When you learn how to pitch in Fenway Park, you can't be a 2-pitch pitcher, and Ojeda came up basically a fastball curveball pitcher, came up with a great changeup, which has made him very effective. In Fenway, everybody thinks, well, you just try to pitch everybody out over the plate. As you take a look at Hershiser, you can't do that. You got to be able to pitch in. You got to be able to change speeds. And of course, if you're 6 for 10 and you're Enos Cabell, that means you're going to get a good pitch to hit. You got it the first time and he hit it, and that's usually the difference, I guess, between a guy that's in a slump and a guy that's not in a slump, and also a guy that hits somebody well and somebody that doesn't. He gets good pitches to hit, and then he's able to connect and hit them. Perfect example of a guy that stays within himself. He's never really been much of a home run hitter. 16 home runs in Houston in 1977. That's quite a statement, though. Big ballpark, but hits the ball where it's pitched.
And he grounds that one down to Hernandez, but that's a tough way to go 7 for 11, trying to get one by Keith. One away. Here's Mike Scioscia, and before the game he talked about the atmosphere surrounding the Dodgers.
I think it's a feeling that we can get there. We know it's going to be a struggle, and we're going to have to play very well, probably as well as we did at the end of last season to do it, but we feel we can accomplish it. I have to say we're frustrated right now at our inconsistency, but we feel that we can put it together and still make a good run.
The Dodgers, 7 weeks to go. 1-0.
Dodgers trying to give some teams a taste of their own medicine. The Giants in 51, catching the Dodgers after being 13.5 back in early August. 1962, the Giants.
That's grounded down to second on what sounded like another broken bat, and Backman takes care of Scioscia, 2 down. And Williams coming up. Remember in 1980, the Dodgers were chasing Houston, and then they wound up catching them at the very end. They won a 3-game series here at Dodger Stadium, and then of all things in the 1-game playoff, it was Houston and Joe Niekro beating them.
As a matter of fact, that may have cost the Houston Astros the chance to go to the World Series, because Niekro could start only 1 ball game, and had they won any of those 3 last weekend games, Niekro starts the first game against the Phillies, and he was the ace of the staff that year.
Houston going on to face the Phillies in what was probably the most dramatic and exciting of all of the playoff series since they went to divisional play in '69. That was the 5-gamer where the Phillies won it in extra innings at Houston. The wild scene, the triple play in Game 4. Another bunt by Williams, and Hearn out in front of the plate to do a good Carter imitation. Nice play. Crowd doesn't like the call, but it will stand, as you all know. 3 up and 3 down. And at the end of 4, it is the Mets 2 and the Dodgers nothing as we take another look at the play.
Well, the one thing Ed Hearn does, he stays low. Jim mentioned that he was staying low on that throw to second when the strikeout completed the 3rd inning. Proper turn, and he does throw very, very well. An awfully close play at first base.
Call your local cable company to find out.
And we'll be back to Los Angeles after this message and news headlines from your local station. Going to the 5th inning at Dodger Stadium. 6:21 on the coast in the twilight. 2-0 Mets. And the top of the order with Dykstra to lead things off, and Hershiser starts him with a strike, and the count is 0-1.
And talking to Davey Johnson, he commented today that Keith Hernandez, who's played a long time, 9-10 years, said 2 hitters talking about Lenny Dykstra. See the attempted bunt.
Everybody trying to bunt, and Hershiser equal to the task, and Orel has now retired 7 in a row with Backman coming up.
Not a very good bunt, Alan. Again, we talked about Hershiser, good hitter, good fielder, bunted it right back to him, and he made the play. And back to that thought, Keith Hernandez just said you should take a look at the promo for next week's Little League World Series from Williamsport, Pennsylvania, a place I've been the last couple of years. Saturday, live except on the West Coast. 4 o'clock Eastern time, and you have to check your local listings elsewhere.
Backman hits one down the line, and that's a fair ball and into the corner. And Wally is on his way to second with his second hit. He had a single in the first and came in to score the game's first run, and now a double. And Backman, who started the day at .334, is up a couple of points.
We'll get back to that thought. Keith just said these are the 2 best 1 and 2 hitters he's ever played with, and it's quite a statement. He's been around, played for some good Cardinal ball clubs.
World champion club in '82.
Of course, if the first and second hitter get on, and you are a guy that hits lifetime right around 300, it's going to make you a better hitter. Keith one time at this year up at right around 335. And of course, we've had a discussion. Keith is such an intense hitter, and I've always felt that the reason he's been as successful as he's been able to be is because of intense concentration. You think that big lead is maybe taken away from some of that concentration, and how a hitter goes from 335 down to 288 and now back close to 300.
Hernandez takes a strike, and the count 0-1. That big lead may mean something at the end. I was thinking if Backman really has a chance in September at the batting championship, Johnson's obviously going to have the luxury of playing him against some left-handers to maybe get him enough plate appearances. But, you know, the problem is the reason he's not in every day is because he has some trouble with left-handed pitching, and they've got Tuffle batting from the right side.
And if you do that, if you allow Wally the extra plate appearances, what do you do to Tuffle if the Mets face left-handers in the National League Championship Series and you want to start Tuffle against the left-hander?
1-1 pitch. 2-1. We pointed out the numbers before. I think it was probably a case of if he was coming up 10 or 15 appearances shy, he might do it, but he's about 35 shy of the pace right now. And that's a little too far to start fooling around with things like batting titles.
Well, also, Davey's a realist, and this year, of course, the reason Wally's hitting so well is that he's really improved his batting average from the right side. Last year, 122, and I think Davey obviously thinks preparing for the playoffs is more important.
Base hit into right field, and Backman will come in to score, and what might have been a close play becomes academic as it's juggled by Williams. So Hernandez with a single. They will give him an RBI and no error on the play, on the bobble. And it's 3-0 as Keith drives in his second run of the night and his 59th of the year.
This is the first time in the 52 innings that Hershiser has worked against the Mets that the Mets have scored 3 earned runs in a ball game. And here it is, only 4 1/3. That information supplied by Alan Roth. Interesting, isn't it?
Well, it speaks for how successful he's been in the last couple of years here in the National League.
I mean, he's 20-3 in this ballpark over the last 2 years. It's remarkable.
He talks about why he likes a pitcher. We talked about the fact we belabored the point about the high mound, but also a little higher grass. He talks about how the groundkeeper has a tendency, and you can see he is totally out of sync. He's up in the strike zone tonight, and This is not the Oro Hershiser that we saw last year in 1985. They cut the grass higher here. He's a sinker ball pitcher. And he's not been able to make the pitches that he was able to make last year.
2-1 the count. Mets on top, 3-0. Hernandez at first base, and 1 out in the 5th inning. And Cabell can take some liberty playing behind the runner. Dodger bullpen gets busy. Strawberry drives it to deep left center field, and that one is out of here. And for the first time in his career, 2 homers in a game off Hershiser. To nothing Mets.
Both home runs tonight have been on fastballs up and away, and we talked about Hershiser being a sinker baller. You can see for yourself this is not a sinker. You got to give Strawberry credit. Almost hits it with one hand, and of course this is, you were down in at the All-Star game and you saw the home run exhibition he put on in batting practice in the home run hitting contest. You know he can hit the ball as far to left field as he can to right, and there was an example of it. Just took a pitch out over the plate and blasted it to left center field.
And a particular thrill for him, for Strawberry that is. No thrill for that man. For Darryl, a thrill to come into your hometown. He grew up here, and to do it in front of a pretty good pass list. 2-1. Dodger bullpen.
Strawberry red.
2-1 pitch is grounded foul on the count, 2-2. Three RBIs tonight for Darryl. Hernandez is driven in 2 and Strawberry the other 3. And that's Alejandro Pena and Ed Vandenberg in the Dodger bullpen. Vandenberg the lefty. To center field, and it's Jose Gonzalez. 2 down.
Gal, an interesting point. You come in to do a ball game and you go to the pitching coach, and in this case with the Dodger pitching coach, Ron Pernoski, and you ask him, how can a guy go from being 19-3, giving up just a little over 2 runs a game, to 3.68 and being 12-8 and struggling? And he said, you know, maybe it's $1 million contract. The fact that when you are a competitor, and Hershiser is, you try to get better, and therefore you maybe try to add another pitch. And in the case, and this is something earlier, Timmy, that you talked about, Hershiser last year was 19-3, throwing sinkers and curveballs and an occasional changeup. This year, he tried to throw a cut fastball so he could ride it up and in on left-handers. Take a look at Ron, and he said what it's done is it got him away from throwing what his best pitch is, and that's a sinker. We haven't seen a sinker tonight. All year long, we have not seen the consistent sinker from Hershiser, and that's why he's not been as effective.
To right center field, and it's Reggie Williams to retire the side. But the Mets come up with 3 more, and at the end of 4.5 in the twilight, New York 5, Los Angeles nothing.
You know, one of the best things about being an ex-big leaguer is getting freebies to the game. Call the front office, bingo. And once these fans recognize me, I probably won't even have to pay for my light beer from Miller. Down it, crack! I love them. These fans know I drink light because it's less filling and it tastes great. Good seats, huh?
You're in the wrong seat, buddy. Come on.
Oh, I must be in the front row.
Come on.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Good seats, hey, buddy? He missed the tag! He missed the tag!
At Dodger Stadium, Al Michaels with Jim Fowler and Tim McCarver. 5-0. The Mets on top as we go to the bottom of the 5th inning, and it'll be Jose Gonzalez, Orel Hershiser, and Steve Sachs coming up in the bottom of the 5th inning. Well, we were talking about the mound before, and Tim feeling that the mound at Dodger Stadium may be a little bit higher than the prescribed 10 inches. And John Kibler, the National League umpire and one of the great ones, got on the phone. He's watching the game, and he said he has personally measured the mound here 2 of the past 5 years, and it is 10 inches.
Well, that was 82 and 83, and then 84.
That's 2 out of the last 5 years. What about 5 out of the last 5 years? Every day a pitcher goes out to the mound. You can measure it one game, and it can be, 15 inches high or 10 inches high. All you have to do to make it 15 inches is a little more dirt, right?
A lot more dirt. Well, compared to 10 inches, right?
Yeah, all right. Well, 1/3 more dirt then, I suppose.
Well, 2 things about Kibler. Number 1, we want to wish a speedy recovery to his son Jeff, because John is with him right now. And secondly, we hope he has a rating book. We know somebody's watching. 3-0 pitch is in there, and the count 3-1.
Of course, Al, this is something you can discuss all the time. You go into Detroit, it's a very flat mound. In Baltimore, Pat Sandler was always accused of, especially when I pitched, the mound was a little bit higher, and maybe you have a sinker baller, he would make it a little bit lower who wants that flat mound. But basically, and I've heard when they first came up with the mounds had to be 10 inches or less, and of course you do have mounds that are less than 10 inches. That's the maximum. It's not the minimum. They would actually take the crown out of the infield and lower the field. So therefore, from the top point of the mound to the top plate of home plate, it was still 10 inches, but it still had a good slope.
Grounded to the hole, and Santana has no play at first base. Gonzalez can run, and even somebody with just above average speed would have legged that one out. So Gonzalez is on, and with Hershiser due up, Lasorda goes to his bench, and it's the rookie Jeff Hamilton, who started the season at Albuquerque, third baseman of the future probably for the Dodgers, coming up.
Very high on this young man. Great bat speed. Really hasn't had a whole lot of at-bats. Came up when Bill Madlock was on the disabled list the second time with the quadricep pull. But you talk to Manny Mota, and as you said, Dodger third baseman of the future. A man they used for defensive replacements for Bill late in the ball game, and he's done an outstanding job in that respect.
29th round draft choice, Jeff Hamilton.
Good change, turned it over, and the count is 0-1.
It must be very difficult scouting, knowing full well that some youngsters develop later than other youngsters, and some youngsters peak earlier.
It's a fine art, and not that much attention is paid to the scouts, but think about the guys who go out there and they put their reputations on the line when they recommend signing people and drafting people, and it's tough. I mean, you got the Strawberries you know will be great, but then a kid like this comes along and develops very late. A base hit to put runners at first and second.
Second baseman,
Bobby Ojeda, as many veteran pitchers will do with a young hitter, will try to get him to fish at that breaking ball, and that was a changeup really knee high on the outside part of the plate. We talked about bat speed, but also strength, and he just flicked it into center field. Situation with Steve Sachs, who's having an outstanding year with the bat, to get the Dodgers back into this game.
2 on and nobody out. Check swing foul. Mets infield can be normally aligned here. The Dodgers aren't going to bunt down by 5. You need a big inning. Oh, 0-1 the count. Gonzalez at second and Hamilton at first. The Dodgers with 4 hits and 4+ innings. In there, 1-2.
A beautiful curveball, and it goes back really. If you look at this inning, Ojeda gets the ball in on Gonzalez, routine grounder, but a little bit in the hole, and Gonzalez's speed beats out the ball, and then he makes a good pitch to Hamilton. And he's just strong enough to fight it off and hit it into center field. So you made 2 good pitches, and you have first and second, nobody out.
2-2 on Sachs.
The one thing about baseball, you can make the good pitches. It doesn't guarantee you're going to get an out. You can hit the ball hard as a hitter. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to get a base hit. But if you can do it consistently over the course of a season, over the course of a career, you're going to have a good career.
Backs it off, fouls it off. The Mets with a run in the first, one more in the third, and then 3 in the fifth. As Hershiser goes 5 innings, gives a 5-run, 7 hits, and there have been a slew of broken bats tonight.
Again, that goes back to maybe something we were talking about as you take a look at the Mets pitching coach, Mel Stottlemyre. An outstanding pitcher in the American League.
Holds the American League record, as a matter of fact, of the most consecutive starts without a bullpen appearance, 273.
Came up in, what, 1964? Stretch run the Yankees made.
Tough.
37 out of 41, really
tough pitcher.
The difference between getting to the World Series and not.
Yeah, and you got to remember that Mel Stottlemyre pitched for the Yankees when the Yankees were in their demise from 1964, when they last appeared in the series, to 1975. And they were in it again.
Lifetime ERA under 3. Even though the Yankees were not a quality team, as you see the high fastball, you didn't want to pitch against Stottlemyre because if you gave up 3 runs, you had a great chance of losing. He just was a very good sinker ball, had a great breaking ball, excellent fielder, could hit. He's imparted a lot of those skills to the Mets' young pitching staff. Talk to every one of them, and they say you could not ask for a better pitching coach. Of course, if you're a pitching coach like Mel Stottlemyre, you couldn't ask for a better pitching staff. Some great young arms.
3-2 the count on Sachs. Runners go. Sachs grounds it to the hole, and that's a base hit. And Gonzalez comes in to score as Hamilton goes to third, as the Dodgers try to claw their way back. 5-1.
Well, I'll tell you, it appeared to me that Santana was cheating towards second, but Backman was covering. You got a 5-run lead. You're looking for an out here. You're not looking necessarily for the double play. You'll take it, but you want an out more than anything else. And Santana, it appeared, was going towards second base when the ball was hit, but Backman was covering. So it's a very strange set of circumstances around second base. With Backman covering, your shortstop's got to stay straight away. But Santana was leaning towards second, and that's what opened up the hole on the left side.
And 3 singles have made it 5-1 with Duncan, who has struck out and singled at the plate. Let me ask you, at first and second, though, what would Backman have been doing moving over to cover second base anyway?
Because the runners were running. So Backman...
To get the backman, though?
To get the backman.
No pun intended.
The trailer.
The trailer.
He's just changed his name. His new sobriquet is Wally Trailer Man.
So in other words, what you were saying is he's covering second in case they want to throw and try to throw out the trail man.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's the only reason he could have been covered.
Sure, with first and second and nobody out.
But the point is, I think you play your infield straight away in that situation because you want an out more than anything else. You got a 5-run lead.
It's also the aggressive nature of Tommy Lasorda. He knows he's got a contact hitter.
Yeah.
Wants to make something happen. And if you do have your runners advancing, that means your infielders are going to make that 1 or 2 steps, and that does open up holes.
2-2.
I think that's one way the game has changed for the better. 20 years ago, managers wouldn't have thought of putting their runners in motion down by 5 runs in the middle innings. But the game has changed for the better. If you win by the stolen base, you might as well keep them running when you're down.
And Duncan drills one to right center field and up the gap, and that's in for extra bases as Hamilton comes in to score. Sachs is stopped at third on a double by Duncan, and it's a ball game again.
Taking a look at the 4 straight hit. It's the only bad pitch that the Heat has made. And Duncan tags it up the gap in right center. Strawberry cuts it off. This keeps Sachs at third base. Right here, Sachs going around third. Just barely gets back. Nowhere to go. Nobody out.
So runners at second and third, and Bill Russell is the batter. It's 5-2 in the 5th inning. Strike, 0-1.
To be perfectly honest, if you're Bob Ojeda, and I've been in this situation many times, you're starting to panic out there. You're making good pitches in your base hits. You're making bad ones in your base hits, and you want to get a win. You want to try to protect that 5-0 lead, which is now 5-2.
Maybe 5-3 and 4 as it's a base hit. 1 run scores, and then the throw to Hearn hits the runner. It hits Duncan and scoots away, and it's 5-4.
I'll tell you, since the Dodgers have come to Los Angeles, I don't think anybody has delivered more big hits than this man right here, Bill Russell. The key hits in the 77 and 78 playoffs against the Phillies, and a big hit here. Dodgers down 5-0 when this inning started. They have rallied for 4, still no outs.
And Sisk is in the bullpen for the Mets, and Ojeda in a situation here where it looked like he had an easy victory. In hand, a 5-0 lead. A starting pitcher has to go 5 anyway. He's on the verge of not only blowing the lead, but maybe coming out of the ballgame.
Well, it'd be a different story, Al, if he was walking guys and making bad pitches. That ball was looped to center. And of course, very bad outfield play by Lenny Dykstra. Trying to throw a guy out, Mariano Duncan at the plate, who has excellent speed, and allowing Bill Russell the tying run to go to second base. An aggressive play, but did not turn out very well.
5 straight hits. It's a single and 2 RBIs, and second on the throw is Madlock around the bunt. Appeal at first. Ojeda wants an appeal. No. Ball 1.
Times hitters will get up in a situation like this and try to bait you into throwing them a fastball. I think that's what Madlock did by trying to bunt that first time. As you look at Davey Johnson, Mel Stottlemyre looking on with a bit more attentiveness now.
1 and 2.
One of his pitchers is having a lot of problems, and as we said, Ojeda 12 and 4 in the year, but lost 5-3 to Montreal last game against Philadelphia, 3 home runs, so he's been struggling. Tonight hasn't been hit hard, but they are doing what the Dodgers do well, making contact and using all parts of the field.
In the air to left field, tagging at second base is Russell, and he'll remain there as the throw comes in from Heath. So 1 away here in the 5th inning.
Enos Cabell.
And it will bring up Enos Cabell. The inning starting with Gonzalez's infield single. And then Hamilton with a base hit to center. Sachs on a 3-2 pitch singling with Santana moving towards second, opening the hole. And then Duncan with the ringing double. Russell the looping single. And it's 5-4 with 1 out and Cabell the batter.
What makes baseball so unusual. You come in, if you're Bob Ojeda, looking to pitch a shutout, 5-0 lead. Now you're scrapping for a win. In a matter of about 6 batters. The inning's not over by a long shot.
Grounder toward the hole, but Backman gets there and throws him out. Kind of ball that on AstroTurf probably gets through, but that grass really slowed it down.
Catcher, Mike
2
Scioscia.
down, and Mike Scioscia is the batter. Scioscia bunted into a double play and then grounded out.
Scioscia, the type of hitter that you've got to play shallow in left field. Danny Heap is actually too deep right now, but especially with a guy like Bobby Ojeda, because Scioscia gets a lot of bat handle hits the other way.
1-0 the count.
Tommy Lasorda calls him a scissor hitter. He said he'll never hit a lot of home runs because the new theory, if you look at Mattingly or Boggs and Charlie Lowers, to get back and then come forward. He's going back as he hits the ball, and therefore, even though he's a big guy, he's never ever going to hit with a lot of power.
I've never really heard it explained like that. That is very, very interesting. A scissor hitter. I'll tell you one thing, he has scissored a few runners at home plate who have tried to score. So he's a scissor catcher.
We saw one last Monday night. A very strange play, but Denny Wally never even got to the plate down in Houston. No chance. Of course, isn't that how he also spent about a month on the disabled list this year? Not afraid of contact at the plate.
2-1 the count. Russell at third. The tying run with 2 down. And it's hit sharply on a hop to short. And Santana gets him, but the Dodgers are very much back in the game as they get 4 in the 5th. At the end of 5-4 Mets. And we'll be back after this word from our local station.
Against Tom Seaver, he would connect right here, and there is no doubt where this thing's going. Long home run, number 19 for Smalley. A solo home run ties it up at 1. Seaver's 13th Gopher Ball of the year right now. Top of 5, still even at 1.
Alejandro Pena.
Dodger Stadium now, 5-4. The Mets on top as we go to the 6th inning. And on a hot and humid night, it's beginning to cool off a bit, but the game is very much heating up. And it's the kind of game that if the Dodgers were to win this one, they'd look back upon it as kind of a benchmark victory if they do indeed somehow overtake Houston and San Francisco. That kind of a game when you're down 5-0 and you're back in it.
Very much the type of game they lost last Monday night when they had a 6-3 lead. And if you look at the schedule between Houston and the Dodgers, the Dodgers have to play the Mets here, then go to New York. Seems like the tougher schedule happens to be with the Dodgers, but never know. If you play well, you can beat anybody.
Leading off for the Mets, catcher
5-4, heading to the 6th inning, and Ed Hearn to lead things off. Hearn, Santana, and Ojeda facing Alejandro Pena. A couple of years ago, led the league in earned run average, then the shoulder surgery, and now making a comeback, but pretty much relegated to middle and long relief, at least at the moment. 1-0 the count.
And that's a very difficult thing to do. You come off shoulder surgery and you have to be in the bullpen. You have to get up and down. And talking to Ron Pernoski and Tommy Lasorda, this is the type of situation when they get him up to bring him in the game, he's usually going to get in the game. They don't get him up and down 3 or 4 times. Used to be overpowering. 90, 91 miles per hour. Is now in the middle 80s, but has had a good breaking ball. As you said, in 84 led the National League in earned run average, but just doesn't have the velocity he used to have.
2-0 pitch. And it's 3-0. 2-0 pitch off the 10-inch mound. I guess we really stirred it up. Steve Brenner of the Dodgers,
I suppose we did.
Came in. He said Chub Feeney called, and he said it's 10 inches. The president of the National League, the great one. Knowing Chub, he called collect. In there in the count, 3-1. But you've got to deal with it. You got to go back to New York.
That's right. That's right. You're going to put all this thing on. Well, we said we thought. I'll tell you, from a hitter's standpoint, it appears to be higher than 10 inches, and I will stand by that.
Like a curve, it's the optical illusion, right? 3-2.
Maybe we should say it's a high 10 inches.
It's kind of like a hard 240.
Right. A weak 318 as he stands in. 3-2 pitch is hitting to right center for a base hit. Reggie Williams over to cut it off, and so Hearn starts the 6th inning with a single. And Rafael Santana
shortstop
coming up.
Rafael Santana.
And a reminder coming up later this week, Friday night in fact, more preseason football action from Texas Stadium in Irving. The Pittsburgh Steelers against the Dallas Cowboys, who had Herschel Walker in civvies on the sideline the other night in their game here against the Raiders, and we'll see about Herschel in uniform and maybe in action on Friday.
You're really getting around, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Houston and Miami this week. Well, of course, you're close to home here. 25 minutes, depending on traffic.
And Maui on the horizon.
Are you up to a condo in Maui on your frequent flyer plan yet?
I own the building.
Probably own the island.
As I said the other day, the prize in those games ought to be you don't have to fly for 6 months. Stay away from those thunderstorms. Hearn at first and nobody out. And Santana 0 for 2 at the plate and up there to bunt, and it's on the outside corner. Pena hasn't pitched much as Harrelson flashes signs. He last pitched 10 days ago.
That's the life of a long reliever. Sit around for 10 days, you throw on the side, hoping to get in a game. Really, maybe not hoping in the game, because normally that means that the starting pitcher is not pitching well. And then you're expected to come in and throw strikes, get your breaking ball over. Never gave up any home runs in the bullpen. It's a lot different out there than when, even if the mound is high when you do get into the game.
Hearn at first base. And nobody out in the 6th inning. Bunted off the front part of the plate. And it's Pena throwing the sacks for the out, and Hearn advances to second on the sacrifice. 1-4, and now Ojeda is being called back, and Lee Mazzilli is coming up. The once and future Met.
It's a good bunt right here by Rafael Santana. Hits that hard area in front of home plate. And the sacrifice successful. Sack's a little late in covering, but he got there in time.
Number 13, Lee Mazzilli.
So Lee Mazzilli now back with the Mets. He's at 3 homers overall this season, counting his stint with the Bucks, and 2 with 4 runs batted in as a Met.
Said he waited 10 years for this, and I think what he, not really obviously because he's already played with the Mets, but really coming back to the Mets with a prospect of playing in postseason play. And a lot of players, you like to make the money. If you look at the Dodger bullpen,
Beckwith is the right-hander and Vandenberg the lefty.
But what the game is all about is postseason play, those playoffs, and hoping to get in the World Series.
Boy, is he excited to be back or what?
Oh, he is. Mentioned waiting 10 years. He waited 6 years to hit a home run right-handed. Back in 1982 was his last home run right-handed until he hit one to tie a game in the 9th inning the other day off Greg Matthews of the Cardinals.
Broke up Matthews' shutout, sent the game at extra innings, and the Cardinals eventually won. Matthews did get the victory because he wound up going 10. 1-0 with Hearn, the runner at second, and 1 away. 5-4 Mets in the 6th inning.
Well, now I think the interesting thing, and we've been talking about the height of the mound all night and whatever, but if you look at the Dodgers home earned run average, which is 268, it's the second best in the National League. When you get them on the road, it's 463, which is the worst in the National League. So I don't know if the mound's over 10 inches or not, but they certainly like throwing off it.
Well, you know what? Feeney himself is coming out here with a ruler tomorrow after this. And you know what they'll find? It's 9 inches. 2-0 the count on Mazzilli, and Pena takes too much time.
Of course, it really shouldn't matter if you want to look at this logically, because both pitching staffs are throwing off the same mound.
Right. I
think the intent, of course, when you go back to when they made the maximum height of a mound from whatever it used to be, 15 to 10, they were trying to help the hitter.
Fouled away in the count, 2-1.
Take away that leverage advantage that the pitcher has, and when you throw off a lower mound versus a high one, you have to use your legs a little bit more.
Houston leading 3-0 in the 9th. Mike Scott has struck out 10. He's in double figures again. Jose Cruz is homered in that one. That's the only other game in the National League tonight. This afternoon, Cincinnati beat San Diego. fouled away. You know, we're kidding around about the mound and everything. McFeeney's going to have to come out and have somebody measure it. But what he should do is also bring the incoming National League president, the scholarly A. Bartlett Giamatti, with his slide rule out here.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Now, Bart, I trust. I would trust him to measure the mound. With that academic background. 2-2 pitch is inside on the count, 3-2.
Oh man, no doubt a man that travels with a slide rule.
I think he's more likely to be traveling with a copy of Dante's Divine Comedy. Is he not a Dante expert?
Or a Dante freak?
Yeah. Frankie Dante from Brooklyn, right? No, he is. I believe he's an authority on the works of Dante.
High for ball 4. So Mazzilli is on, runners at first and second with one away, and Len Dykstra is the batter. Cleveland leads Milwaukee 8-3 in the 7th, and in the other game in the American League, which we've been updating you on, Boston and Minnesota 1-1 in the 6th.
Back to Lee Mazzilli. Take a look at Tommy Lasorda. He was also thrilled to come over and play for the Mets because of the way Davey Johnson uses his bench. Very rarely ever go 3 or 4 days as a bench player without playing, so you're going to have an opportunity to prove yourself.
Beckwith and Vandenberg in the bullpen. Tommy looking out in that direction. You've got Dykstra, the left-hand batter, and thus the call goes out for the left-hander. And the former Mariner, Ed Vandenberg, will make his way in with 2 on for the Mets, 1 out, top of the 6th inning. And at Dodger Stadium, the Mets leading Los Angeles 5-4. Back amongst the Palms after this. Tommy Lasorda has to go to his pen to bring Ed Vandenberg in, the left-hander, to face Dykstra, and then Backman, the switch hitter, will be next. Runners at first and second. The Dodgers getting very much back into the game, and that's the last thing you want to have happen. You're down 5-0, you make it 5-4, you're back in the game, and then the Mets get a couple of more runs. That could write an end to this
center fielder.
Certainly could, and of course this is why you have the lefty versus the lefty. Dykstra from the left side. Ed Vandenberg traded from the Seattle Mariners here to Los Angeles for Steve Yeager. Mariners love that trade. They thought they were getting a veteran catcher that could help their young pitching staff, and the Dodgers wanted Ed Vandenberg to come in and solidify what they thought was a good right-handed bullpen. And Ed has struggled. And his problem has been all year a sinker ball pitcher that's been getting his pitches up, both breaking balls and his fastball. And Ron Peronowski's been trying to work with him and establish the low fastball, which is what he had and made him successful at Seattle.
1 away. Hearn at second, Mazzilli at first. And it's hit in the air to right center field, and the outfield was shallow, but Williams with his speed goes back to make the catch, and neither man was tagging, and so nobody advances. Hearn was halfway between second and third for some reason, and Mazzilli halfway between first and second, seeing where Hearn was. No sense tagging up back at first base if the other guy is out no man's land, and Dykstra hits a drive, but Williams is able to track it down.
Well, if you're the runner at second base, instead of going halfway, you go 1/3 of the way. That allows you the opportunity to get back to tag up if he makes the catch. Now it's too late. All the judgment should come from the player at second base, in this particular case, Ed Hearn. You don't need the coach to tell you anything. But if he were to drop that ball, if you're 1/3 of the way, you still have an opportunity to come around the score. But if you're halfway, obviously you score if he drops it, but you can't tag up if he catches it. That's why he's still at second.
Here's Backman swinging and missing, and the count 0-1. Tommy angry again.
I think what he was angry maybe was with the pitch selection from Ed Vandenberg. Threw him a Lenny Dykstra a fastball instead of a breaking ball. Most likely that's why he brought him in. Dykstra almost hammered it to the warning track for a double. Reggie Williams again playing percentage baseball with Lenny Dykstra, even though he has hit more home runs.
Well, he's on the umpire right now as Amalfitano repositions Williams in right. But Bonin looked over and said, "Cool it," sort of. Euphemistically. One and one on Backman. 2-1 now. Houston's won. That will not help to make Tommy's night either. Scott 13-8. That's shutout number 4 for him. Again, he's in double figures in Ks. And Cruz hits his 5th homer. Two and two.
Awfully good-looking ball club they have down there in Houston. We've seen them a number of times this year. Good speed, excellent pitching. Good defensive ball club, especially on the turf.
And even if the Mets played them in postseason play, the Mets won 7 of 12, but the Astros beat the Mets the last 3 times they faced them. And they would be a tough and formidable opponent.
Well, you throw Mike Scott out there.
You bet.
And then with Nepper and if Ryan's healthy.
And that's in there for called strike 3. So Backman, a 149 career hitter, right-handed, goes down with 2 on and 2 out of the 6th inning. And at the end of 5 1/2, it's still Mets 5, Dodgers 4. Twilight in Los Angeles at about 10:07 Pacific time. And the lights are just beginning to have some effect here at Dodger Stadium, where the Mets lead the Dodgers 5-4. And Doug Sisk, who's had an up-and-down career with the Mets. A couple of years ago, it looked like he was headed for the All-Star team on a perennial basis. And then the next thing you know, he's back in the minors, and here he is again. And as we mentioned before, Tim McCarver, one of the voices of the New York Mets, and you watch him every day. And how's he coming along?
I think the biggest reason that he's more successful this year, and anybody who followed the Mets will certainly know, that his bases on balls are down. He's walked only 3 per 9 innings, and that was the reason he was sent back to the minor leagues to Tidewater, the AAA affiliate of the Mets, to work on his control. And he did, and he has.
It's very interesting that what is his strength, which is a great sinker that moves so much, is really a weakness because he has trouble controlling it. What makes him unhittable also gets him into trouble. So, and when you talk to Vern Hoshak, he said, with the exception, I think, of the last game he pitched where he walked a couple of guys in a row, he has had much better control.
Reggie Williams fouls it away, and the count is 0-1. Williams, Gonzalez, and then you've got the pitcher due up, Vandenberg. 5-4 Mets. That's hit into left center field for a base hit. So a single for Williams, and now Gonzalez comes up, and Niedenfuhr's in the bullpen.
Center fielder, Jose Gonzalez.
Lasorda kind of has to play this one by ear as to who bats next. In a way, he'd like Vandenberg to stay in the game because Hernandez and Strawberry and Heath come up in the next inning, but he has to wait and see what happens with Gonzalez here. If Gonzalez, let's say, were to walk or be hit by a pitch or single a man along the second, maybe you let Vandenberg come up, but he's got Matuzik at the moment in the on-deck circle. Fouled away, and the count 0-1. And there is Len, at least for the moment, out on deck.
Well, one of the weaknesses that the Dodgers have had, and we saw that last Monday night, is that if you start a right-hander against them, they do not have a left-hander on the bench to pinch hit. Ojeda, though, left-handed starting. A multitude of guys over there left-handed. They can come off the bench and beat you. Brock, Matuzik, Stubbs, legitimate home run power hitters.
Now Gonzalez around to bunt and takes inside, and the count 1-1. So Williams at first base, nobody out in the bottom of the 6th inning. The Mets on top 5-4.
That ball almost hitting Gonzalez, and that would be the worst thing that could possibly happen. With runners at first and second, nobody out, you keep Vandenberg in the ballgame, the left-hander, to bunt the runners over.
Absolutely.
Best of both worlds.
Tommy could wish anything here outside of a home run. It might be a walk.
Or an error or something that would result in first and second and nobody out.
The runner is going, and the throw gets him. Williams is thrown out at second.
Well, he did not have a good jump, and the reason he didn't have a good jump, it's not imperative to have a good jump on a hit-and-run play. The responsibility lies with the hitter, and the hitter, Gonzalez, fails to make contact, and Ed Hearn takes advantage. Fine throw by Ed Hearn. Fine throw.
And now it's fouled away as the count stays a ball and 2 strikes. That is a pose and a posture that Lasorda has struck so often this season. The pacing, the mumbling. Tommy's always been a man who's worn his emotions on his sleeve. But I've seen him go down into the runway this year for the first time on numerous occasions. Lasorda in the past used to sit there and the hand would go through his hair and the hat would come off, and he'd let you know what he was thinking if you could read his lips. He's gone out of sight on a few occasions this season. Still 2-2.
You talked about it earlier when Bill Madlock said we just haven't played well. He has seen things that maybe in the last 10 years he hasn't seen very often. Everybody just thinks that the Dodgers, because of what they have done in the past, will come out of nowhere and end up winning the National League West. Very difficult to do playing the type of ball they've played this year.
That's grounded toward the hole, fielded by Santana. 2 down, and now Lasorda has that option if he wants to hit Vandenberg here, but instead he's going to go to the bench, and he's going to hold, or is he? There is Vandenberg, who was ready to come up. 2 out and the base is empty, and again, Lasorda with an interesting choice here. Do you try to keep the inning going with 2 out, bases empty, or do you let your pitcher hit? It's only the 6th, and then have the lefty face Hernandez, Strawberry, and Heath in the top of the 7th.
How many times do you see your pinch hitter lead to a run with 2 out and nobody on? How many times do you see a regular hitter lead to a run with 2 out and nobody on? Percentages are against it.
So it's a big gamble here in a way, because it means you've got to go to Niedenfuer, and it also means that the lineup gets turned over a little quicker too, and Niedenfuer's spot's going to come up more rapidly than it would have otherwise. So you may have to get him out of the game a little sooner than you want.
And then you have to go to Kenny Howell, who's been struggling. 4 runs in his last 4 appearances, 2 wins, 2 losses.
1-2 the count.
Because you're more prone to do something like this when you're 9 games back and you have to try to create a win situation.
That's true.
That's got to be what he's thinking right now too. Two. You
end up losing the game 5-4. Vandenberg pitches well, and you said if I'd only pinch hit, maybe we would have had a chance. And again, as we said, he has some good left-handed pinch hitters on the bench, so why not take a shot? Not a very high percentage shot, though, as you pointed out very aptly.
Here's Sachs waiting on deck. Matuzak keeps the inning alive. The Dodgers will now hope that Sachs can make it pay off. Walk, flied out, and single to left. Steve is 1 for 2 as he comes up.
It's interesting to note that had Davey Johnson been confronted with that same choice, he would have had to have left Vandenberg in there, because the Mets have just finished playing the Cardinals 6 games in 4 days. So he wants to get as many innings out of Sisk as he possibly can. He had to call up Randy Neiman to start a game. He pitched very, very well, winning his first start since 1979 in the 2nd game of the doubleheader. against the Cardinals yesterday at Shea.
And it was Beeman who won his first game in, what, 3 years here at Dodger Stadium in relief back in May.
That's right.
And we were here. There's Rick Aguilera talking to him before the game, said he threw a pitch, sharp pain in his right knee. And of course, not that he overreacted, didn't know what was the matter. Left the ball game, what, an inning and 2/3? Ended up losing 2-1. He said that's a tough loss. I told him they're all tough, Rick. No matter if they're 2-1 or 8-2 or whatever.
But the point is, until Thursday, when the Mets have an off day, they are thin in the bullpen.
Two balls and 2 strikes on Sachs. We're in the bottom of the 6th, 5-4 Mets with 2 out, and Len Matuzek at first base.
It's unusual you talk about a team that would get a plus, so a team on its way to winning well over 100 games if they keep up the pace. But if Sisk comes back like he pitched in '84 when he had 15 saves, and Orosco and McDowell, quite a bullpen. In fact, Davey Johnson, in talking about his ball club, said the only weakness he really feels he has is another defensive shortstop in case he has to pinch hit for Santana. Doesn't have somebody that he can count on at shortstop defensively.
Chopper to third, going to be a tough play as Johnson fields, and there is no play. And so Sachs has 2 hits tonight, a chopping single, and it brings up Mariano Duncan.
Shortstop, Mariano Duncan.
A pitcher that has movement that is on a straight plane never gets a ball hit like this. I bet Jim Palmer didn't have 5 balls hit against him in his career like that.
You're right. I think it was 4.
Really? Really? I mean, seriously.
No, you're right. If you throw the high riding fastball or the ball that has that up movement, like Gooden has or whatever, you're not going to see that type of play. And what really makes it even more difficult, if you look at the infield at Dodger Stadium, they have a different surface in the pitching mound and round home plate than they do at the infield positions. You get a lot of those high choppers.
Duncan takes low, ball 1.
But again, Sisk with the outstanding sinker, you're going to see a lot of those high choppers. It's not going to help you here as much at Dodger Stadium as it would on a normal field, say, in New York.
So again, your ally can be your enemy. That sinker.
1-1.
When they talk about Doug Sisk, they talk about that heavy ball, and you've caught many pitchers. I think everybody used to like to catch me because my ball just kind of went up a little bit and easy to catch.
Feather
ball that sinks. You can break your thumb if you're a catcher.
1-2 on Duncan. Dodgers with a tying and go-ahead runs on base before this sellout crowd. Matuzek is at second and Sachs at first with 2 down in the 6th inning. Two and 2. Matuzek. Sachs at first. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Those are Hershiser numbers, but you know what happened to Orel tonight.
Matter of fact, among active pitchers, Doug Sisk has allowed fewest home runs for pitchers pitching over 300 innings. 6.
Still 2 and 2.
He has worked 314 2/3 innings in his career and has allowed 6 home runs. Again, an indication of that devastating sinker.
And nobody's hit a home run off Sisk since the 25th of May, 1985, and it was Greg Brock, a Dodger, who did it. 2, and so the runners will be going. And we'll find out very shortly if Lasorda's move by letting Matuzek hit for Vandenberg pays off. As the runners go 3-2 with 2 out in the 6th inning. And it's ripped to right field, but right to Strawberry. And that's that for the Dodger threat in the bottom of the 6th inning. And one of the big plays in the inning was Gonzalez's inability to hit the ball on the hit and run. That was the key as the Dodgers leave 2, and at the end of 6, it's 5-4 Mets.
At Dodger Stadium that you and your family won't want to miss.
Good tossing, Billy. Still anybody's game. Good all. Get some.
In the ninth. Good all.
Thought you were best at sitting.
That's right. So I gotta save you.
Don't stay out in the sun too long.
Your best deserves the best.
Bud Light?
The less filling light beer with a first name and taste.
Tough day.
Mets on top. They once led 5-0, but the Dodgers with 4 runs in the 5th inning. 5-4 New York. And a new Dodger pitcher as we head along to the top of the 7th, Tom Niedenfuer, who's picked up saves the last couple of days in San Francisco, makes his 53rd appearance of the season. He has had, in a way, the ultimate roller coaster ride this year, giving up several dramatic late-inning home runs, and then other times looking like the Niedenfuer of old.
We talked about him many times. We saw him come in last Monday night. Outstanding arm. And again, talking to Ron Peronoski, what he has had a tendency to do, and you can maybe trace it back to the home run to Jack Clark in the playoffs. If you look at tonight's array of pitchers for both sides, is that he has become a thrower instead of a pitcher. And what they've been trying to get him to do is turn his fastball over. In other words, instead of throwing across the seams, go with the seams. And Ron asked him a question. He said, when's the last time you threw 2 breaking balls to a hitter in a row? And Tom couldn't come up with that answer. So they've tried to get him to throw more breaking balls and become more of a pitcher. And the reason I think for that is that they are not using him as really the stopper. They're using him as the guy that has to pitch more than an inning, 2 to 3 innings. And he's going to have to use all his pitches to be successful.
Keith Hernandez, the batter. 1-0 the count. Hernandez started the game at 296, and he's up 2 points, going 2 for 3. One and one. 3 left-handed batters in Hernandez, Strawberry, and Heath in the 7th.
Hitting easy when you have that kind of eye, and you also get that kind of respect from the home plate umpire. You're seeing 3 pitches pretty close to being strikes, and only 2 of them, excuse me, 1 of them has been a strike.
2-2. Bill Robinson, the first base coach.
Also the batting instructor for the Mets.
Also a part-time pugilist.
Yes.
Ask Rick Rhoden.
Especially if you scuff the ball. Or supposedly scuff the ball.
Got into a brawl with Rhoden in a bench-clearing episode in Pittsburgh a couple of months back. Grounded down to first, and Cabell makes the play. On the subject of bench-clearing brawls, it was Niedenfuer and Ray Knight the last time these 2 teams faced each other. Meanwhile, tonight in the 5th inning, this is now the difference in the game. This home run by Darryl Strawberry marked the first time that Orel Hershiser had ever given up more than 1 home run in any game in his career, and it also gave the Mets what looked like an insurmountable 5-0 cushion. And now it's 5-4. Have been involved, as many of you know, in a few brawls this year. The one in Pittsburgh, the one with the Dodgers when Foster hit the grand slammer, and then Niedenfuer flunked Knight. And then the recent one in Cincinnati with Knight and Eric Davis. Do you know that that fight took place at the exact same time that the Giants and the Cardinals were having their brawl with Herzog and Craig in St. Louis? How do I know that? Only with a satellite dish could somebody know that.
I had heard that, though.
Simultaneous fights. You don't know where to flip. 2-1.
I would assume then you were flitting from channel to channel to be able to ascertain that both fights were going on.
Absolutely. Hit down to second, and Sachs throws him out. 2 down. Is it just me, or does it seem like there have been more fights this year than in recent times? More brawls.
Well, I think with the Mets, certainly it has been. They have actually had 4 fights this year, but the most recent coming in Cincinnati. What a bizarre game that was. A double protest by Pete Rose and Davey Johnson. 2 relief pitchers going from right field to the pitcher's mound. Roger McDowell ending up winning the game. Howard Johnson a 3-run homer to win it in the top of the 14th.
Wasn't that the game in which Parker dropped the fly ball in the ninth as well? Otherwise the Reds would have won it.
That's right, and the fight wouldn't have happened. The fight happened in the 10th inning.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda, or something like that. 2-0.
Of course, in reference to Niedenfuer hitting Ray Knight, he says it just happened, and you have to pitch him inside. Of course, it happened after a grand slam. He said timing is everything, and that was bad timing.
Fouled away in the count. 2-1.
Well, it seems you see more batters going out to get the pitcher in the American League, mainly because of the frustration that is with some Dodger fans. The frustration of the pitcher never comes to the plate with a designated hitter, so you never can retaliate. That's the way the game used to be.
Well, you would think that there would be more knockdown pitches in the American League, but there aren't.
Grounded down to Cabell, and after juggling, gets it over to Niedenfuer. And so Tom comes out of the pen and sets down the 3 left-hand batters on 3 grounders after 6.5, 5-4 Mets back after this. And news headlines from the paid crowd. Every seat was sold. A lot of no-shows, though, and the paid attendance is 46,099 in a ballpark that, when it's packed to the gills, can accommodate around 55,000. Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles, celebrating its 25th year, and the Dodgers 29th out west, and Monday Night Baseball in its 11th season. And we'll wrap up our Monday coverage a week from tonight. California taking on the Yankees in New York, or Boston against the Texas Rangers. Bobby Valentine has his team still very much in contention next Monday at 8 Eastern time. Russell, Madlock, Cabell come up to face Sisk in the bottom of the 7th inning. 5-4 Mets. Sellout crowd, but that guy's figured out a way to take a peek. Howard Johnson disposes of Russell. 1 pitch and 1 gone, and we'll take a look at Bill Madlock, who is 0 for 3.
Third baseman, Bill Madlock.
Oh, that ball was all over Bill Russell's thumbs. Right in on the fist. It looked like it was between his hands.
Sisk chews up catchers and batters. When he throws strikes, you just do not, the ball does not come ringing off the bat. You've heard of guys who as hitters have the ball jump off their bat. You rarely see that with Sisk.
I guess it goes back to what, the heavy ball. 1-1. Who threw, since we talked about the heavy ball, the sinker, who threw the heaviest ball you caught in your career that spanned parts of 4 decades.
Well, Gibson threw a heavy ball, but not as Sailor. I mean, the ball that he kept in on right-handed hitters was very, very heavy. Ooh. That looked like a changeup there.
Well, going away from his strength, which basically is a sinker or slider. Throws him his 3rd pitch. And Bill seems not too fast. They'll just take one for the club and go down to first base.
Interesting that hit the mad in Madlock. It makes you mad, too, when it hits you.
How in the world did you notice that?
I'd like to see a replay of that just to make sure. I thought it got a little bit of the yell.
Yeah. I thought you had a lock on things like that. Oh, stop it. Cabell.
That's right, folks. There's a lot of humidity out here tonight, and you're not used to that, are you, Al? Okay, now watch where this ball hits.
Watch it. Hits the mad.
It hits below the mad.
It's close enough.
That's right. Well, we never would have known unless Peter gave us that replay.
Up and in, and they've got Madlock hung up between first and second, and Hernandez makes the tag as he was going, and the pitch was such that Cabell couldn't swing. And so the Dodgers botch another hit and run. And another pose for Lasorda.
Well, Tommy's saying what else can go wrong, and Cabell, a contact hitter, but the ball almost hits him. Hearn very alert. See Santana, and they know they have Madlock in a rundown.
Enos Cabell just got fined for slamming his bat down at first base umpire Frank Pulley for calling the ball a strike. Cabell certainly went around on the pitch.
What happened here is that not only was the out recorded, but then the appeal was made, and the first base umpire, Frank Pulley, said you came around.
Anytime you throw your equipment, it is a $100 fine. But you are allowed to remain in the ball game.
Well, Lasorda was walking back, but his voice carries, and then Pulley starts chasing him.
The count was 1-0. It did appear that Cabell went around. But, Jim, I think you had an excellent point. The ball was too tight to put into play. You don't know whether to get around on it.
That's not a swing.
That's what, when he ducked and then once he went down and then came through with the bat, that as far as I'm concerned, was the reason he went too far. Had the bat remained on the shoulder, it's ball 2. But because he had that little wrist action toward the end, that's what made it a strike in my eyes.
That was what you call indisputable visual evidence. And were this the NFL, it would have been 2-0 instead of 1-1. 1-2 the count.
You guys had a nice discussion last Friday about that I recall.
That's going to open up as many arguments as close them, I think. 2-2 the count. Two out, bases empty. Bottom of the 7th inning, the Mets ahead 5-4. And he fights that one off and grounds it slowly to Johnson, who has no play. An infield single for Cabell. So Enos keeps the inning alive, and Socha is the batter, and Cabell, I think, was just thrown out of the game. As he reached first base, he had one more thing to say to Pulley, and that was the last thing.
I don't think I've ever seen this in 28 years of baseball. It was as though he couldn't wait to get down there to give him him one more word.
And so he was safe at first, but out of the game.
Well, Tommy's not happy because Cabell is the type of guy that can steal a base, already stolen 8. Normally you don't see that, Tim, and you know as a catcher, if you're arguing on balls and strikes, unless you turn around and make an obvious display as you look at Mike Marshall coming out to pinch run, you normally don't get thrown out of the game.
I've never seen that.
Even though you don't know what he said from the booth, he didn't make an obvious point of showing them up. So it must have been rather profane, so to speak, or of some personal nature.
Catcher, Mike Scioscia.
And he was 2/3 of the way there anyway after barking at Pulley from the plate.
Well, yeah, his most expensive strike, $100 strike, for throwing the bat down on a ball he thought was a ball, and then you get thrown out and you don't know what that's going to cost you.
And now you got to put a man in with a bad back to pinch run, and Mike Marshall. And the reason Marshall hasn't been playing of late is the fact that his back's been killing him. And he spent time on the disabled list and tried to come back into the starting lineup, but hasn't been able to hit. Now they're forced to pinch run with him.
Last year, 4 attempts to steal a base, was unable to do that. So really, a guy like Enos has been around as many years, not a very heads-up play. You really hurt your ball club taking yourself out of the game. And that's part of the game, though, controlling your emotions. And you would think, considering Sisk on the mound, ball running all over the place, you just legged out an infield hit, you'd be pretty happy. But now you're sitting in the locker room, in a position not to be able to help your ball club.
And the way things are going tonight, the Dodgers need all of the base running help they can get. As Cabell got hung up in the second inning, and that led into a double play on a Scioscia bunt. Gonzalez missed a hit and run, which led to Williams being thrown out in the 6th. And then Cabell ducking away from the pitch in the inning, missing a hit and run, and Madlock is hung out. In there, 3-1. Scioscia's on. Now Williams is due up, but Lasorda will go to Brock. Greg Brock coming up to hit. And with activity in the Mets bullpen, we'll see about a counter for Davy Johnson.
Well, Davy Johnson, with his computer magic, I'm sure realizes what Tommy Lasorda realizes, that Greg Brock hit the last home run against Doug Sisk back on May 25th of 1985.
And activity down in the Mets bullpen as the announcement is made here.
Number 9, Greg Brock.
So Brock is officially in the game. Jesse Orosco, who's been heating up in the Mets pen. So let's see if Johnson will go for Jesse, and he apparently will. As Orosco waits for the call, and Johnson comes out probably to make the double switch here.
And wouldn't you like to have Mike Marshall to pinch hit here right now?
And he goes to the bullpen, and despite a touch of the flu, Mookie Wilson is asked to come into the game. And Danny Heath comes out, and that means Orosco can bat in Heath's spot, number 5. Heath making the last out in the top of the inning. Fascinating in the sense that this game, as we stated before, is so much more important, of course, to the Dodgers than the Mets, and yet Davy Johnson playing it as if the Mets were 2 games in front in the East. It's exactly the way he's playing it.
That's the type of competitor he is. He is the type of competitor, whether it's a golf game, a card game, or a baseball game, he wants to beat you and beat you soundly.
And we'll return after this word from your local station. With the Mets ahead 5-4, the Dodgers have runners at first and second, 2 down, and Jesse Orosco makes his 44th appearance of the season. 4-5, but 16 saves. A 2.72 ERA, and Greg Brock had been announced to bat for Williams, but Brock 3 for 44 against left-handed pitching, and so Lasorda goes to Alex Trevino, the right-hand batting catcher, who hit a home run in San Francisco yesterday to give the Dodgers a 1-0 lead in the game they won 2-0. And that leaves only Franklin Stubbs on the Dodger bench among the non-pitchers. One and 0. It is still Ojeda's game to win. He went the minimum 5. He left with a 5-4 lead. Sisk came on and worked 1 2/3. And now Jesse. 2-0.
Talking to Davey Johnson about Jesse Orosco, he calls them his fly ball pitches. Sisk throws the sinkers along with Roger McDowell. Jesse, slider, good riding fastball. In fact, he got under the last 2. Saw Ed Hearn tell him his drop in his arm. There you saw an example of that good fastball, and it really looks like his elbow is much better than it was last year. Tim, you've been around all year. He struggled last year, 31 saves the year before, had some elbow problems. Very inconsistent in 85.
See, he really popped that fastball, and his slider, particularly since the All-Star game, has been the type of slider that Met fans at Shea and National League fans on the road are used to seeing out of Jesse Orosco. But his elbow was definitely bothering him last year.
2-2 to Trevino, got him swinging. And the Dodgers in 7 innings have left 9 men on base. And at the end of 7 at Dodger Stadium, it is still the Mets 5 and the Dodgers 4.
The Dodgers throughout the year.
Tommy Lasorda's got to make a couple of more moves, and he doesn't have much maneuverability remaining. He has to leave Mike Marshall in the game, as Marshall, bad back and all, plays right. That's 5th, with Cabell thrown out of the game.
For the Mets, third baseman.
And then Alex Trevino, catcher by trade, but a versatile man, has to fill in at first base. And he bats in the number 7 spot. So there are the Dodgers now defensively, with the Mets ahead 5-4 going to the top of the 8th inning. Howard Johnson struck out twice, fly to right. Hearn and Santana follow. 0-1.
Also another reason to keep Trevino in the game, other than wasting Franklin Stubbs, your last player, is that they don't have another catcher. So if you do have an injury, even though maybe possibly Sachs or somebody could go behind the plate out, you want to keep him available. So again, we go back to Cabell getting thrown out of the game has made a major difference in this ball game.
Yes, it has.
The pinch hit with Marshall, even though he has not been hitting well because of the aforementioned injury to his back.
Is outside. Trevino at first base. It's the first time he's been there since 1977, when he was playing for Wausau, Wisconsin in the Midwest League. He has played third base in his major league career, but the first time at first, as it's grounded foul, sort of symbolizes the Dodger flight all season long. You really do need a scorecard with this ball club.
Really, if you look tonight's lineup, or really their roster, they are healthier than they have been most of the year. Most of the time, As we talked about before, you're thinking of looking at the Albuquerque Dukes. So many injuries.
Chopper to first, and it's Trevino. Wouldn't you know it? He gets right into the action and just does get it there in time to Niedenfuer.
Tom a little late in getting over there, I think mainly because he thought that Trevino would take it himself. Alex says, I don't need any putouts. I'd rather have some assists.
Help the fielding average.
Well, it also, when they look at your assists, people think you've been throwing well. He's a catcher.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's good. I like that.
Here's Hearn at the plate.
Jeez.
Swing and a miss. You're right. For a catcher, a putout is nothing. I mean, you get a putout on a strikeout.
And we heard that from a catcher that caught in 4 decades.
Well, I thought you were going to say that had problems throwing. I would have. Well, you could have said that. Well, I did.
I consider you a friend.
No, I did though. I did have problems throwing. The years I played first base, I wish they would have tacked some of those assists to my years of catching. I've had this thought before.
How many positions did you play?
I played 4. I caught, played first and third and left field.
Meanwhile, Scioscia has signaled for Charlie Strasser, one of the Dodger trainers, to come out to visit with Niedenfuer, and Ron Perinoski will not check it out himself. Did you notice anything in the last couple of pitches, Jim?
Not really, other than the balls were up, but again, a long inning. And as you said, Niedenfuer has been used a lot. Not overworked, but a lot of innings lately.
Joe Beckwith is down in the bullpen.
A lot of times you have those long innings, you come out there, you think you're loose and you're not. And the difference between taking your warm-up pitches and pitching to an actual hitter are a little bit different.
Meanwhile, you caught a glimpse when we showed you Beckwith of Ken Howell getting ready to start throwing. Tom Candiotti in the knuckleball, winning again 10-4 Cleveland over Milwaukee. Tony Bernazard, another home run, number 12 for him. Boston and the Twins 1-1 in the ninth. Foul back and the count 1-2.
Well, what a story, Tom Candiotti. On his way out of baseball, comes up with a knuckleball. You saw the 12 wins. I suppose if you're going to work on a knuckleball and use it as one of your regular pitches, it would be nice to have a guy like Phil Nico over there to help you. And that's the case.
Loop to right field, and Marshall with a long way to go, and it's a base hit. So Mike playing well over toward right center field. And Hearn is aboard with a base hit to right.
Shortstop, Rafael Santana.
I don't know how much Marshall's running is affected by that bad back. That's one of those plays that may have fallen in anyway, even with a healthy Mike.
Well, it would definitely not have had much a chance of falling with Reggie Williams in right field. But again, having to pinch hit, as you see Mike hold Ed Hearn to a single. We talked about this last week. Matuzik in left, Stubbs really most likely will end up at first and center, and Marshall started out as a first baseman at Albuquerque. And in talking to him about the bad back, though, it's really not a bad back. It's lower back pain that's been bothering him all year. It's gotten him into bad habits as a hitter. He's been struggling at the plate, and it's got to affect his running.
Santana takes a strike on the outside corner, 0-1.
It's one of those injuries that really affects your performance, but does not affect it enough where you don't or aren't able to play.
If you're thinking double play, it would be very unusual. Niedenfuer has only thrown 2 ground ball double plays in 72 innings all year. 2.
No balls and 2 strikes to count. And Niedenfuer's hurt. He's hurting. And he's hunched over, and I'm sure this will do it now. And I guess, well, don't want to speculate. All of a sudden, whatever it was sensed early by Trevino.
It looks like a sciatic nerve problem. Well, if it is that, those are the most painful things in the world. It's either a hamstring. You saw him grab the upper part of his right thigh.
And it comes with the count 0-2. He'll need assistance in coming off the field. The Dodgers will probably bring Howell in, and they will also send Stubbs into the game. And here comes Ken. And under these circumstances, Howell will be given enough time, whatever he needs, to warm up, though he has been warming up for the last couple of minutes. And Stubbs comes in as they make the double switch at first base. And that means Stubbs will bat in the number 9 spot. And Howell up in the order.
Take a look at Tom Edenker and his follow through, and it looks like his left leg gives out, which may have aggravated his right hip. As a former pitcher, I know that turning and trying to get as much drive as you can off that right leg can really aggravate the hip. Looks like that's what happened.
So Stubbs comes in, batting 9th, meaning he'll be up second in the bottom of the inning as Lasorda keeps on pacing.
Seaver and Frank Viola locked up in a great pitcher's duel at the Metrodome. A 1-1 game, top of 9, and this is Rich Gedman with a man aboard. Sends it deep and out. 3-1 Boston. Tom Seaver to this point a 2-hitter. If the Red Sox hang on, they'll assume a 5.5 game lead in the East. 3-1 Boston, bottom of 9.
And back in Los Angeles, it's 5-4 Mets in the top of the 8th, and Ken Howell ready to work on Santana, who conveniently grounds one to Duncan. He goes to Sachs, and that's all they get. So Santana got on a force.
Left fielder.
Duncan nearly took Sachs' glove off. 2 down, and it brings up Mookie Wilson. Wilson was in the original starting lineup tonight, came to the ballpark, and then he and Ray Knight were both scratched with a touch of the flu or a virus, but Wilson obviously well enough to come into the game and batting in the number 9 spot. So he hits here with Santana at first base and 2 down in the 8th inning. And we'd like to tell our local stations we'll give you an additional station break opportunity at the end of this half inning. Foul away in the count 0-1. But Tim, with Dykstra playing so well and with Mitchell playing a lot in left field since the departure of Foster, what's Wilson's role with the club?
I think it's more important now than it was when he was a regular player, especially with the departure of Foster, and especially the way Davey Johnson likes to maneuver his players. I'd like to say one thing about Mookie Wilson. You know, when he came back, he was opened the season on the disabled list. He came off about 2.5 weeks into the season. He had played as regular center fielder for about 4 or 5 years, and Dykstra was the center fielder for the most part. No complaining from Wilson. He handled it about as classily as anybody I've ever seen handle a situation.
Still showing the effects of the bug, though, right there at the end of 7.5, 5-4 Mets back after this from your local station. Going to the bottom of the 8th inning, the Mets lead the Dodgers 5-4, and one of the prime staples on ABC's Wide World of Sports through the years has been coverage of the Little League World Series. That comes your way this Saturday, beginning at 4 Eastern and Pacific, 3 Central Time on ABC's Wide World of Sports. The annual big week in Williamsport, PA.
Little hamlet up in Pennsylvania.
Jim, you enjoyed doing that, didn't you?
The last 2 years, not only, 2 years ago, my father was and my mother were Little League Parents of the Year, so my mother had just broken her hip. In fact, I'd like to wish her, she was 83 yesterday.
All right.
In Phoenix, Arizona, or Scottsdale.
Beautiful.
But I went up there. My father was Little League Parent of the Year, along with my mother. Graciously accepted the award for all Little League parents, and last year I had a chance to spend some time with Gary Carter's father, who was Little League Parent of the Year. So not only is it a great week for Little League baseball, but the people treat you nice, and I've always had a wonderful time. I'm sorry I'm not doing it this year.
While we're on families, I'd like to wish my mother and father-in-law a happy 50th anniversary. Celebrating the golden wedding anniversary this year.
Great. It's wonderful.
A couple days ago.
I'd like to remind my wife to take the toast out of the oven before I get home here.
In Maui.
Gonzalez takes outside, ball 1, 1-0. Jose Gonzalez hitting in the number 8 spot, and then Franklin Stubbs batting 9th, and the pitch in for a strike, and the count is 1-1.
You know, Linda's come a long way. I never knew she wasn't very good with toast before. A long way.
In there, the count 1 ball and 2 strikes on Gonzalez. Gonzalez is your basic primetime player. He has 3 hits since his call-up, and they've all come in nationally televised games. 2-2. On radio, he stinks. To center field and deep but playable for Dykstra. 1 away.
First baseman, Franklin Stubbs.
Franklin Stubbs, who is the last of the non-pitchers, so there's nobody else on the Dodger bench. You've got Pedro Guerrero down there, but he is inactive on the disabled list. And you could pinch hit with a Valenzuela, of course, but then who do you put in the outfield or wherever?
No, Fernando looked awfully good in BP today, snagging him in right field.
And he has played the outfield. He did in that crazy game in Chicago a couple of years ago. Stubbs. High, ball 1. Franklin in a slump. He's 1 for his last 22.
You see the sleeve on his right arm. He's had some turf burns.
That's playable. Hearn. 2 gone. Steve Sachs coming up.
Steve Sachs.
Well, the one thing about Jesse Orosco, when he is well, he does not mess around. Comes right after you. As we said, the good hard fastball and a great slider, and tonight's no exception. It's going to make you hit strikes.
Yeah, a lot of people forget that Jesse Orosco came to the Mets in the Jerry Koosman trade way back in 1979. That's the thing about a lot of trades. They may not look good the first or second year, but during those developmental years, the 3rd and 4th year, they may come along and help you out. And that's what the Orosco trade has done for the Mets.
1-0 on Sachs. Dodgers trying to play catch-up all night long. At one point trailing 5-0. It's been 5-4 since the 5th.
You're looking at Davey Johnson on the right and Mel Stottlemyre, and if you're going to be a good major league manager, and Davey has certainly proved that. 90 wins, 98 on their well on their way, I suppose, maybe winning more games. Orosco 17, 31, 17 saves this year, 16 already. Makes your job a lot easier when you have a dependable left-hander, especially in the National League where you're playing those percentages, flip-flopping.
Two and 1 the count. Boston beats Minnesota 3-1, and so it's a 5.5 game lead for the Red Sox in the AL East.
Seaver, terrific again. That's why they call him Tom Terrific. Didn't pitch well, or he pitched well, but he didn't have anything to show for it, because the Red Sox immediately after the trade went into a hitting slump. The last couple of times been pitching outstanding.
That's 63-2 going into the 8th. In the bullpen with Orosco and McDowell protecting the lead. Little looper and out of play. Still 3-2. Toward right center field, and right there is Dykstra to flag it and send the Dodgers down in order in the bottom of the 8th. To the 9th we go. 5-4 the Mets. Well, you talk about a full moon.
Len Dykstra.
Craig Janoff telling me that is a 100-to-1 lens. For those of you camera aficionados. Beautiful. And so with a full moon shining down on the City of Angels, it's 5-4 Mets as we go to the 9th inning. And for the Dodgers, a night of frustration so far, falling behind and then getting back in the ball game, but only 1 inning to go, and it's 2-0. So Ken Harrell out in the bullpen to try to keep the Mets close.
And his biggest problem has been throwing strikes. More than 1 strikeout per inning. Hits are way down, but the walks are up there, 46 in 72 innings. And the gentleman at the plate right now that if you want to walk him, he'll take the walk. Of course, lately, in talking to Bill Robinson, the batting instructor with the Mets, the average was right around 335. We saw it at 309. He said he's become a little bit enamored with a home run. It's been pulling out, maybe trying to hit the ball a little bit farther than he's capable of.
He's probably enamored also with his slugging percentage. His slugging percentage, he's 9th in the National League at 380. Make that 480. Dave Parker at 476.
To right field. Well, Parker may pass him now after that fly out. Marshall making the play. And Dykstra tonight is 0 for 4.
But Dykstra the type of guy, and of course as we take a look at the next hitter, Wally Backman, when you talk to Bill Robinson about capabilities of hitters, he said what Backman does so well is that he does not change his stance. He stays within himself. I guess the point is that if Lenny Dykstra is going to try to hit home runs, he is not going to hit very many, and he's going to be a better line drive hitter, contact hitter. And that's what Wally Backman's done all year. He stayed within himself. He gets on. He'll take the walk. And that's why he's having such a great year.
When the Dodgers come to bat in the bottom of the 9th inning, 2, 3, and 4 hitters, Duncan, Russell, and Madlock.
I guess we could make the parallel. We mentioned it earlier in the broadcast. For Lenny Dykstra to become overwhelmed with his home run power is the same, probably, as Orel Hershiser thinking he can ride fastballs in on left-handed hitters and get them out. He may do it occasionally, but that's not his way to pitch.
Well, it wasn't last year, and he was 19-3. And if you talk to most people that have had successful careers in any sport, they do what they do best most often. And when Wally Backman hits the ball in the air, or Lenny Dykstra, majority of the time it's going to come down in the ballpark and somebody's going to be camped under it. But that's the learning experience, and nobody says that you have to be perfect in your second year in the big leagues. And I think Bill Robinson and Lenny will sit down at some point if they haven't already, and knowing Bill's thoroughness, they probably have. He says, hey, how'd you get to 335? Hitting the ball the other way, trying to hit the ball up the middle. Let's cut down the swing. It's nice to hit home runs, but let's do it when the pitcher makes a mistake and he gives you the opportunity to do it.
Three and two the count.
Wally Backman's a perfect example of a guy that played for Davey Johnson at a minor league level, showed that he could do a lot of things to make Davey a better manager, and brought him to the big leagues, and he's done that. Led the National League in fielding last year, percentage at second base. May not maybe have as much range as a Ryan Sandberg, but if he gets to the ball, he's going to catch it, turns the double play adequately. He's not had a great year of stealing bases, and you've seen him all year. And for a guy that really can steal 20, 30 bases, only 9 this year, and thrown out a lot.
Well, he had a pulled hamstring the first 2 months of the season, nursing that pulled hamstring. That has considerably cut down his stolen bases.
Comebacker. Look what Howell found. 2 gone.
First baseman, Keith Hernandez.
And one of the reasons Kenny Howell has trouble with his control, he has a real stiff front leg and throws across his body and thusly out of position to field the ball. But he did field that one. Otherwise, the ball is into center field for a base hit. Something they've tried to work with. I mean, you're looking at a guy right here that has a fastball well in the mid-90s, a slider that's sometimes 87 to 89 miles per hour. So if he can throw the ball over, he's going to be effective. And when he doesn't, he struggles.
Keith Hernandez. Hernandez and Strawberry have done the Mets damage tonight. Keith with 2 RBIs and Strawberry with 3, each with a home run. Kenny Howell, who started the season like he was going to be the answer to all of Lasorda's prayers, has had a very erratic second half. One ball, 1 strike. One and 2. Two out, bases empty. Top of the 9th inning. Mets leading 5-4. And again, the Dodgers trying to keep pace with Houston. The Astros beat Pittsburgh tonight 3-0. Two and 2 on Hernandez.
Just another indication of how good a hitter Hernandez is. Make a good pitch, and Ken Howell's done that. He fouls him off. Wants to eventually get the count to where he has to throw him maybe a better hitter's pitch, and that's when Hernandez is able to be successful.
You can't pitch Hernandez inside until it's 2 strikes, and then he goes to protecting the outside part of the plate. And he does it as well as anybody.
Howell strikes him out. Howell does the job. And now we'll see about the Dodgers with Duncan, Russell, and Madlock coming up in the bottom of the 9th inning. Mets 5, Dodgers 4. Presented by authority of Major League Baseball. May not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. Peter Lasser, our producer tonight. Craig Janoff, our director. TD Rich Gilbert. Robbie Cowan, our associate director. Bob Gabrielson, our technical manager. Phil Annis, the unit manager. Margaret Reimer, telecommunications. Elise Backus and Dave Marr, the assistants to the producer. And as always, to Alan Roth up here in the booth and to Steve Hurt for the marvelous graphics. Our thanks as we proceed on to the bottom of the 9th inning. 5-4, the Mets on top. Duncan takes 5 for a ball. Duncan, Russell, and Madlock in the bottom of the 9th inning against Jesse Orosco.
Receive word from the Dodgers training room that Tom Niedenkerr with a muscle spasm in his right hamstring. Doesn't seem to be a pull, so if you're a Dodger fan, he most likely will be back in a couple of days.
2-1 the count. Orosco in quest of save number 17. 2-2.
That's what the good fastball can do. You can get behind a hitter 2-0. He'll take one, trying to get the walk, and then he knows the fastball's coming and he still can't catch up. And what he's done, to me, as you know well as a catcher, he's now put himself, if he does want to throw the slider now that Duncan's been late, he sets him up for the breaking ball. So you establish the fastball, and then you have a choice.
Even though normally you're trained as a catcher to call for the pitch that the pitcher can get over the best on a 2-2 count, because you don't want to go to 3-2. But those are under normal circumstances. Right now, the circumstances are such that Orosco's thrown in 4 straight fastballs.
And also, you're talking about a guy that can get both pitches over when he's right, and he's been right this year.
3-2 on about the last guy you'd like to walk if you're Orosco.
Well, he knows that, and I think he'll go to the Davy Johnson theory, which basically is try to throw the ball right down the middle and hope it goes to the corner. Davy calls that the variable chance deviation theory, being a former math major.
And it's ripped into left center for a base hit. And the tying run is on. So Duncan is at first base. Duncan was hit the other night in Houston in batting practice and missed a couple of games on a line drive off, I believe, his thigh or calf, and he was hobbling down toward first base.
He's had ankle problems, was on the DL for that, not on the DL, but was just kind of inactive for a while. As you see, the ball just hit Lenny Dykstra in center. Yeah, that's another thing. You hate to go 3-2, Tim, because as you said, you have to throw a strike, especially to a guy that stole 44 bases.
Meanwhile, we can expect the call and get it for Roger McDowell to come into the game now with Russell and Madlock and Marshall due up in the bottom of the 9th inning. And it also brings Kevin Mitchell into the game as Dave Johnson makes the switch. And so we have seen Ojeda, Sisk, Orosco, and now McDowell. And the Mets playing this one, as we said before, and Tim McCarver talking about Davy Johnson and the way he goes about things. The Mets look like they're right in the middle of a scramble instead of a 16.5 game lead in the East.
I'll tell you, the one thing a manager does not want to do is carry a 1-run lead into the bottom of the 9th inning and then be forced into a double switch, because if you make a double switch, what you're saying is you stand a better than good chance to bat again. And if you've got a 1-run lead, you don't want to give the impression that you don't have confidence in the pitcher coming in, but those are the circumstances. A manager's job is to place the hitters in the right spot just in case this game is tied after 9, and Davy Johnson does not miss too much along those lines.
No, it doesn't. Unusual, though, strategy move. You have Orosco, the left-hander, with a better pickoff move than McDowell. You have a guy on first base. Duncan has stolen 44 bases. You would think you might, in a bunt situation with Russell up, or at least a possible bunt situation, leave the left-hander in there. But Davy chose to go with McDowell, who has, as we've said on many occasions, the best sinker in the National League.
In my opinion, Roger McDowell is the best fielding pitcher in the National League.
How's his pickoff move?
Good, but not great. But he is an outstanding fielding pitcher.
So I guess Davy's anticipating a bunt and wants his best fielder out there.
I think that's...
Not to mention a pretty good pitcher as you look at the numbers.
Not that Orosco is not a good fielder. He is an excellent fielder, but McDowell is a remarkable fielder.
And also you have Russell and Madlock and Marshall coming up, 3 right-handed batters here. Russell, by the way, is a good bunter, so it presents a most interesting situation as to what Russell will be doing here.
And if you're Davy Johnson, you know, as you said, they do not have anybody else on the bench. If you look at the sacrifice bunts that Bill Russell has, and of course, this is why you can be the senior statesman in the National League as far as years of service for one ball club. Bill Russell has been an outstanding shortstop, but he could do so many things for you. Never really stolen a lot of bases, never hit a lot of home runs, never hit 300, but 260 to 280. Knows how to hit the ball the other way, pretty adept base runner. So in this situation, will he bunt or won't he? And the bets are that if he is called to bunt, he will get the ball down. And as a bunter, you know, as a former pitcher, I used to have to try to bunt catchers over. If you get the ball down at all, you know with Duncan's speed, you don't have to make a great bunt.
Also with McDowell's sinker, you don't have to make a great bunt. You're going to get on top of the ball, I'll tell you that.
Hernandez ready to charge from first base, and Johnson in shallow at third. Backman and Santana shortened up, and McDowell working on Russell, who chops it foul, and the count is 0-1.
Really interesting. We saw 5 runs down, a hit and run. The runners in first and second. So to Tommy Lasorda, even though normally the old cliche is that you play for a tie at home and try to win on the road, you would think a bunt's in order, but you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, that's the reason that first pitch is so vital to throw it for a strike, and Russell accommodating Roger McDowell by fouling it off. If the first pitch is vital in a normal situation, in a bunting situation, it's doubly important, because if you fall behind, you may entice the opposition to changing their strategy, and the hit and run's one way to do that.
Squaring again, bunting foul again, and it's 0-2.
Scratch everything we just said.
Right, forget it. Throw it out. Move Johnson back. Put Hernandez right on the bag. Tell him to forget about charging. Duncan checking out Amalfitano.
Strawberry deep and right with Russell. Russell's the type of guy who can protect the plate with the best of them. And when you protect the plate, you take something away from your power. Strawberry about 8 steps too deep in right field.
Of course, I played for a manager for years, Earl Weaver, in this situation. He's more concerned about the winning run, which is Bill Russell, than the tying run. So therefore, he wants his outfielders in a deep position, because the ball up the gap is going to put the winning run at second base. And well, I always felt as a pitcher, I wanted my guy playing where they're going to hit the ball. So if I have confidence, you got a sinker baller on the mound, why play a guy that's not going to hit the ball up the gap deep? And I kind of agree with you.
I have really no qualms with the left fielder and the center fielder, because those are your power fields. But the right fielder, with an experienced hitter who protects the outside part of the plate, is apt to hit that little clunker out there. He's not going to beat you with a gapper, or at least chances are he's not going to beat you with a gapper, because the very idea of protecting away means that he's taking something away from his power.
Tonight, 3 problems on the bases, and then Russell can't lay down a bunt, and here they are down to their final out.
Key to this play, you talked about McDowell being the best fielder. He knows he's just thrown a double play ball. Let Santana shovel it to Backman. He knows he has time. Russell does not run that well. You see the second out. So from a situation with a tying run at first, winning run at second, to 2 out, you need 1 more out for a win. And so that's why you bring in your Davy Johnson, a guy with a great sinker, and he did his job.
Bill Madlock, 0 for 3, and he's been hit by a pitch. Comes up hitting .271 with 2 out on the bases empty in the bottom of the 9th inning, and the Mets ahead 5-4.
That's one of those plays. The instinct is to try to catch the ball. And we're looking at a guy in his second year that shows great innate ability to know that he's just thrown a double play ball, or at least a possibility of that.
1-1 on Matlock. If he keeps it alive, Mike Marshall on deck. Tommy trying to avoid the Monday night blues for the second week in a row. They blew one to Houston a week ago. 1-2. And in Houston, I'm sure Lasorda, as Davy Johnson looks on, Tommy had to have a rough time sleeping last Monday after they blew a game that they had very much in hand. And he'll be tossing and turning tonight, too, because they've had a lot of chances. chances as McDowell strikes out Madlock. And that's that, as the Dodgers fall behind 5-0, get back in the game 5-4, and that ends the scoring in the 5th inning. And the Mets, with some good work out of the pen, keep the Dodgers in check and win it by a score of 5-4.